Hello and welcome, March Madness fans. I'm your host, King05, and today we have my entire March Madness run. It's going to be a long video. Anyways, let's get right into it. So, this is the team that I drafted. It's actually the exact same team that I planned pre-draft, and I thought that this was really ambitious, and then it's also incredibly solid. But yeah, I was actually fortunately able to get the entire team completely free of snipes. Got the round 1 Latios, which is my Zmon user. This thing with the Z moves is very, very hard to just stop. This thing gets all sorts of nice options, being like a Z Thunder. You can use Hydro Vortex, you can use Dragonium, Psychium, you can run the Scarf even, you can run Ghostium, Groundium, like all sorts of things. Latios is easily my best Zmon on this roster. The only thing that really comes close is like Archeops, and if we only get one Zmon user, it's going to Latios. Like, yeah. Anyways, this mon's very solid. All these mons are very solid actually, and instead of just going through each individual mon for the draft analysis, I'm just going to talk about synergy, because, well, being that I wasn't sniped, I was able to plan this draft out with all this synergy in mind. And so first off, let's start with the defensive core, because this thing is beefy. Like, you got the Clefable, Ferrothorn, Toxapex, Double Intimidate, Hariyama. Man. As well as some nice natural bulk from Latios. Ooh. Like, basically my whole team, aside from Archeops, contributes to my defensive core and like answering things with switching in and like defensive counterplay, rather than trying to make the hard read double and catch the thing on the switch in with some offensive momentum, which is not reliable at all. Something that is reliable though, Pex, the top 1 water type in the format. No lie, it's actually incredible. I'm not sure how I managed to get it round 4, but hey, I did. A lot of people think that Toxapex is disgusting and refuse to draft it. Well, you're truly missing out, because this thing is Jesus. Anyways, Latios, Clef, Pharaoh, Toxapex, Crocodile, Archeops, Hariyama, and Manectric. My offensive core is not quite as vast as my defensive core. I have Latios, Manectric, Hariyama, Archeops, and Crocodile. These three, I mean, Clef can go offensive, yes, but it's not going to. I'll be quite frank with you. I never bring offensive Clef. But anyways, yeah, that's the team. Very solid. Let's go over some like benchmarks, or like just kind of things that you really want in your draft. You really want your Dragon Fairy Steel Core. It doesn't get much better than Latios, Clefable, Ferrothorn. Like, honestly, if you had a Steela maybe, it would be better, but Ferrothorn just covers more options on this team, and Ferrothorn in its own right is fantastic. Also gives me a grass type. Anyways, the next thing you think of is like fire, water, grass, right? I don't have a fire, but that is perfectly fine. Manectric has overheat, Hariyama deals with steals very good, Crocodile also deals with steals. I'm not really in need of like denting steals heavily, so I don't really need a fire type. And of course, that's not the only thing fire types are good for, but generally fire types are not that important in 8-mon draft. So that's why in 8-mon, if I'm going to get a fire type, it's either Infernape or Volcarona or Megazard X. And other than that, not really much else is worth picking up in my opinion. Maybe like a random Torkoal. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much my draft. What else is there to talk about? Regen. Regen's very good. Double Intimidate. Double Intimidate, Regen. This team is just so good. Like, the only things that really break it are like a Life Orb Mamoswine. I don't have the greatest checks to that, but I do have Ferrothorn, which is about as good as it's gonna get, to be honest. Unless you have like an Alomomola. But like, even then, Life Orb Freeze Dry is going to be knocking you very hard. But anyways, other threats, not really much offensive clefable can, opposing offensive clefable that is, can kind of break through anything that isn't SPDF clef. But yeah, overall, very solid team, I think. And yeah, let's check out our first pools matchup. So let me just open up the team so you guys can see. So we have, I'm just going to move this right there. That seems good. But anyways, we have a Squirtle, Florida Squirtle Squad, a fellow LD coach, and yeah, you can see his team right here: Celesteela, Mega Gallade, Tyranitar, Empoleon, Tangrowth, Nidoqueen, Jolteon, and Claydol. Now, he does have the Tyranitar. Bantar, in general, is just a spooky thing to switch into, which is why I have Max Vizdef Toxapex, just the first mod on there. I am actually Rocky Helmet because I want to be able to pivot this thing in on a Crunch, on a Celesteela's Heavy Slam, on a Mega Gallade's Drain Punch, or even a Zen Headbutt. Honestly, like, this thing takes like 70% from Zen, I think, and if I really need that 17% off on it, I can definitely get that. This thing also punishes a Tangrowth's knockoff, Empoleon's knockoff. I have my own knockoff, so I can 1v1 Empoleon. Scald, nothing really wants to switch into Scald on his entire team. Yeah, Scald is just really good versus him in general. The burn effect pretty much cripples half his team, and not quite cripples, but it's very annoying to the other half. And yeah, just Max Vizdef, 8 SPDF, not much to the EV spread. Next up is my Mega Manectric. This thing is Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Overheat, and Hidden Power Ground with a modest nature. Even though he does have the Jolteon, I don't expect it to be max speed at all. I think it's going to be creeping my Latios, if anything. And so this is actually creeping a Scarf T-Tar, as I believe Scarf T-Tar is a benchmark that you should hit. But anyways, that's pretty much the set. It's not very heat. HP Ground hits the Nidoqueen and the Jolteon in one move set, so, or in one move slot, so that was my Hidden Power of choice over Hidden Power Ice, because I didn't think the Claydol was coming, because, well, it's a Claydol. It's an Unmon. But anyways, Overheat is there to snipe the Celesteela if I don't want to predict. Actually, no, what am I saying? It's for Tangrowth. Ignore that. I am Electric type. I can beat a Celesteela, yes. Anyways, next up is my Clefable. This thing is Leftovers, Max Defense, Moonblast, Thunderbolt, Soft Build, and Stealth Rock. Thunderbolt is to hit Celesteela and Empoleon, and I didn't feel like having coverage for Nidoqueen was really that important. I felt like the coverage for Celesteela and Empoleon was a little bit more important in the long run, as well as this thing gets up Stealth Rocks quite reliably, and I can also come in on Mega Gallade. The only thing that knocks me out is a +2 Poison Jab, and even then it's a roll. So if he doesn't SD up, I can live any hit, even 2 Poison Jabs. Without the Swords Dance boost, I'm able to get some Leftovers recovery, which actually puts me out of range of the next one, so that's pretty cool. Soft Boil, just to keep myself healthy. It's a pretty self-explanatory set. Magic Guard instead of Unaware, because, well, Magic Guard is better in the vast majority of matchups. Although I do bring Unaware in a few matchups, you'll see. But anyways, next up is my Latios, which is going to be Waterium with its Surf. This is to snipe the T-Tar that wants to come in, as T-Tar is his most immediate response to the Latios. Draco Meteor is also very good, and Thunderbolt to hit the Celesteela and the Empoleon. So this thing has just the right coverage for his team. Waterium Surf is quite strong, and the speed tier is pretty nice versus his team. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's not bad. I can speed tie with Mega Gallade, although I do have some nice tech for Mega Gallade coming up soon. You probably already see it over there. But anyways, this Pokemon can break through his team relatively easily. I mean, Assault Vest Tangrowth can definitely sponge hits, although it can't really do too much back because I am Z-move, so Knockoff isn't doing that much and I can roost off the damage. But regardless, I can't really touch it too much. But anyways, Jolteon, this thing can check Jolteon to an extent. I'm expecting the Jolteon be Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, Signal Beam, HP Fire, as that kind of shreds through my team. I don't have a great switch into that thing aside from Assault Vest Hariyama and maybe Spadef Clef, but I really need physically defensive Clef in this matchup. But anyways, Latium is very good versus his team. Then we have Scarf Crocodile with a Foul Play. This is my Gallade check, and I actually have Intimidate as well. Intimidate Foul Play is kind of counterintuitive, but in the case that I'm not clicking Foul Play, I definitely want to lower my opponent's attack. Like for example, if he had a Celesteela, I can get the Intimidate off on it, and after Intimidate, clefable actually walls defensive Celesteela, and he can't get any Leech Seed recovery off of me that way. And so with the combination of clefable and Toxapex, I'm able to stall out Celesteela. Even if he Leech Seeds Toxapex, I can go into clefable and rinse and repeat, etc. But yeah, low kick is there for the Celesteela, as it's always base 120 power versus Celesteela because that thing is fat. This also hits the T-Tar, and it doesn't give me the minus defense and attack from superpower, so I felt like low kick was definitely the play in this matchup. I am adamant. Speed creeping, something, probably, what do I want to, what was I speed creeping? Let me see. It might have been I actually don't know. What number do I hit? 277? What is that? Oh, it's for Nidoqueen, right. So this is creeping a Nidoqueen because if he's Scarf Nidoqueen and wants to catch me off guard or something, or if my Choice Guard gets knocked off by a Gallade or something, I still want to outspeed that thing guaranteed and hit it with an Earthquake. Anyways, yeah. And the last one is Hariyama, Assault Vest, because I need a Nidoqueen switch in. That's pretty much it. This thing also kind of shreds through his team with his coverage. The only real switch in is Tangrowth, and even then it can't do too much back to me, and close combat's doing a lot if it's Assault Vest, which I think for Latios it should be. Latios, Manectric, even Assault Vest, it still checks Crocodile pretty nicely, so I don't think he has a need for physically defensive Tangrowth versus my team. But anyways, that's going to be the team, and let's go into the first game of my pools. And here we are. You can see he decided to bring the T-Tar, Empoleon, Jolteon, Nidoqueen, Gallade, and the Celesteela. I'm actually going to just switch sides real quick. And so for this game, I know that Jolteon's going to be a huge threat. T-Tar can definitely trap my Lottie if I let it come in on my Lottie for free. Celesteela, probably not going to be the biggest threat because of my Pex. That thing can just wall it for days, get off a Skull Burn potentially. Gallade, one of the bigger threats, although I do have the Scarf Foul Play as well as the Max Defense Clefable and Double Intimidate. So it's not too bad. Nidoqueen can probably break through my team if he pressures my Hariyama enough and he's offensive. Jolteon can definitely pressure my team a lot. Empoleon, not so much. It can get up rocks and defog, but that's pretty much it. It's kind of hardwalled by Pex. If it's not carrying Flash Cannon, it can't do a thing to Clefable. And Latios can come in on it unless it's carrying Ice Beam, so it doesn't really have the move slots to do everything that it wants to do in this game. As well as Hariyama just comes in. If he gets a Skull Burn, I get my Guts boost, and just kind of go ham versus his team. Anyways, let's get into the game. He leads off with Gallade, as I lead off with Hariyama, and Hariyama was the only thing on my team really that stopped a Nidoqueen from getting up hazards immediately. Well, there was also Latios and Crocodile as options, but those both had problems. If he was Shukaberry for my Crocodile, he could have gotten up rocks there, or a T-Spike, or whatever he wanted to do, or just get a hit off. And if he was Pyappa versus my Latios, he might feel more inclined to stay in, even though I'm not Surf. Or even though I am not Psychic, I'm actually Surf instead. He might feel comfortable staying in and getting up the rocks, and I probably wouldn't, or I'd probably click Surf, because there's not too much reason not to, but I felt like leading with Hariyama was just the best general thing, because it also prevented Jolteon from getting off any free damage, as well as covering the T-Tar lead. So yeah, Hariyama was kind of the thing that caught everything except for the Gallade. And what do you know, he led with Gallade. But leading Latios wouldn't be that much better, so I couldn't really prevent rocks and have a good matchup versus Gallade, so I just went for the one that prevented rocks. But anyways, here I'm going to go into Crocodile because I only flex. This game is probably the most flexatious game the whole tournament. I go into clefable on the SD, and now I actually just go for the moon. Or no, I doubled a crook. Wow, what a lord. Anyways, I knew that his play there was either Zen or Poison Jab or switch to Nidoqueen, so crook kind of covered every single thing. And yeah, so I catch the Nidoqueen there. Here, I know he's going to go into Celesteal because he doesn't want to lose him onto Earthquake, so I go for the knockoff. He reveals he has max Spadef, and knockoff is actually going to 2-hit KO very easily from that range. Well, that was technically a roll, but it was 26.4 minimum or something like that, and he was at 27, so I was perfectly fine taking that risk and knocking him out. He goes into his Jolteon. I'm going to go to my Hariyama because the Signal Beam is quite obvious, and now I'm going to make the flex play, go back out into Crocodile on the Volt Switch, not letting him get off any chip on my Hariyama, and I'm just going to click Earthquake and claim one, because Scarf Crocodile versus no ground resist. Next comes in Gallade. I go into my Clefable as he goes for the Drain Punch. Now here, I believe I just get up my Stealth Rocks, because Rock's Clef will always get them up. It's pretty broken. Anyways, he goes into Nidoqueen. I go into my Hariyama. He goes for Earth Power. A crit does 27. And he actually reveals that he is not offensive with that damage. And I go for the Earthquake because, again, no ground resist, no reason not to go for Earthquake. It just picks one up. Goes into a Swampolion, but that's perfectly fine. Scald does 26 because he's in Torrent, but I'm able to just knock him out there. Now he goes into his Gallade. Now, you know, I'm going hard Clefable on this thing. And now he's going to go for the Zen Headbutt, and he crits me the only way that he could avoid a 6-0. Well, not really, I'd have to make some plays after that, but you see here, he does not expect the Scarf Foul Play. He drops to the Scarf's Foul Play, and that's a dead Gallade. So yeah, in comes Nidoqueen, and I'm just going to go hard into my Latios on the Earth Power because, you know, it never stops with this game. And now I'm going to go for the Surf here because it catches the Tyranitar on the switch in even if he wants to switch. And now Hydro Vortex was looking to be a roll, but he probably EV'd to live Surf plus Hydro Vortex, so that's probably fine. But he does go for the Pursuit on my Hydro Vortex as I stay in, and I knock him out with the next Surf, and the Nidoqueen comes in and it's going to die to the Surf as well. So that's the first game of my pools, and now let's go on to the second one. So let me get the team right here, and this is versus Maddie Brolic, nicknamed Broccoli in my team builder. But anyways, versus this team, it's Maddie, so I wanted to win, obviously. Like, when you're facing someone that you consider to be very strong, especially in pools where you have a long time to prep, you really want to do a good job prepping. And I really wanted to say that I have beaten Maddie Brolic in Draft League format. So here we go. This is my prep. This is going to be Ghostium Latios because his Latios switch-ins are a defensive Azumarill or Jirachi, and that's pretty much it. I guess I'm a Sharna, but again, that gets just smacked by Ghostium. Yeah. So you'll see this EV spread. This is so that I can live a Jolly Pursuit from Mega Aerodactyl even if I switch. So that's pretty nice. I don't really have to fear that thing coming in as much as I would have to normally. But yeah. 240 special attack because I did need some defense. And 240 does pretty much the same thing as 252. It smacks his team. Next up is the Manectric. These two kind of just smack his team in conjunction with each other. Manectric softening blows with Intimidate and volting out to get momentum into the Latios. If I really am feeling icy, I can double into Latios on the Nidoking because I feel like Nidoking is the best switch into Manectric that he has. So if he wants to go into that, I can definitely just go into my Latios and pretty much claim one if I make the right play. Overheat is there for the Lurantis, as Lurantis is a huge threat versus me. Like, I pretty much got 6-0'd by it in my first draft of the team. And the only thing I really had for it was Overheat Manectric, and you'll see this is my next Pokemon. This is another thing that I have for Lurantis, Unaware Clef. Now, I really don't like Unaware Clef, but in this matchup I feel like it was necessary. He has too many setup threats to account for without Unaware. He has the Lurantis, which sets up literally while it's attacking with Leaf Storm. He has the Musharna. He has the Mega Aerodactyl, which can Hone Claws, and an Azumarill, which can Belly Drum. Now, Belly Drum is one of the likely Azumarill sets, but I feel like there's one even more likely, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Anyways, Rock's Clef, because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken, it will always get them up. Moonblast, because I don't need coverage versus Jirachi and Nidoking. I really don't. Because you're going to see these next few sets. But anyways, that's pretty much all for this Clefable set. The special defense allows me to take 2 Flash Cannons from Hydreigon, by the way, so that's pretty nice. And next up is my Crocodile. I know you see the pecs. I'm getting there. This Crocodile is Assault Vest, first of all. It has enough special defense to take 2 Life Orb Draco Meteors from Hydreigon. Superpower is to hit the Hydreigon, pretty much just that. Knockoff, Earthquake, General Stab, Stone Edge for the Mega Aerodactyl. This thing kind of just smacks his team with my coverage. I don't need a lot of attack investment to do so either. I have enough speed for a modest Nidoking because he doesn't have a good reason to run Timid or Jolly versus my team, I don't feel. Like, he can try to creep a Crocodile that's creeping him, but like, I feel like this will outspeed any variant of Nidoking that he wants to bring. So that's pretty cool, as well as 88 attack allows me to always one-hit KO Nidoking even if it has a decent amount of HP, which it probably would, being the primary switch into Mega Manectric, maybe even Yachi Berry or something like that. But anyways, that's the Crocodile set. Just nice to sponge some special hits, as well as get the Intimidate for the physical hits. So that's pretty nice. And yes, Shed Shell Toxapex. Now, what's the idea behind this set? Well, remember I was saying how Belly Drum Azumarill is likely. Well, it's not as likely as a Perish Trap set, because when you have Azumarill versus a Clefable, which can be unaware, Toxapex, which can potentially eat a +6 knockoff, and Ferrothorn, which can also potentially eat a +6 knockoff, plus a Latios, which can tank an Aqua Jet even at +6, as well as a Hariyama, which can fake out. Belly Drum is nice, but Perish Trapping is going to get the most use out of Azumarill, as it beats all of the primary Azumarill switch-ins that I have, being Toxapex and Ferrothorn. No other Azumarill set can really do that besides Perish Trap, so that's why I'm Shed Shell Infestation Toxapex. This is designed to, when he hits me at the Whirlpool, I go for the Infestation on his Perish Song, he's trapped in with me, I wait until the last turn, then I switch out into like Clefable or something. And he dies to his own Perish Song and I live. So that's pretty fire. But anyways, the EV spread, this is just pretty much max defense for the Mega Aerodactyl primarily. I don't really need too much special defense to take on his special offense. Hydreigon still can't really break me unless it's a boosting item. And even then, I do have my Clefable and my Assault Vest Crocodile and my Assault Vest Hariyama to deal with that. Just physically defensive Pex is better in this matchup, I feel. Anyways, that's it for the Pex, and then my last Pokemon is Hariyama, Assault Vest, again with Crocodile. Both of these are able to check Nidoking very well. Probably Crocodile a little bit better, because I don't feel like he would ever click Ice Beam versus my team with the Nidoking if he's predicting a switch. He would always go for his stab move to hit the Hariyama, so Crocodile's a little bit better there. But anyways, I do have the Hariyama as well. This gives me another thing to threaten a Belly Drum Azumarill, because even though I think he's going to bring the Perish Trap set, I do need to prep for Belly Drum as well. That's another thing about Azumarill that's very good, it forces a lot of prep. Anyways, I have Fake Out, Bullet Punch, dual priority. This also helps me pick off a weakened Aerodactyl, weakened Hydreigon, weakened anything really. Close Combat, Knockoff is just general stab versus his team. I don't really need that much coverage because his fairy type is Azumarill, which is not the sturdiest thing in the world, and I do have my answers to that. So yeah, that's pretty much the team, and let's get into the game. So here you can see he did bring the Lurantis, which is again a huge threat. Nidoking, Jirachi, Hydreigon, Mega Aerodactyl, and the Azumarill. And you can see my team over here. I'm going to switch sides real quick. And yeah, so looking at his team, I'm pretty sure that the Lurantis is going to be Leaf Storm, Hidden Power Fire. I feel like that's the set that really bodies me the most, because I do have a Ferrothorn. He does need to prep for that with the HP Fire, or I guess he could Superpower, but I feel like HP Fire was the set I was more fearing. But anyways, Nidoking, always a huge threat from a breaking standpoint. Jirachi, I'm not too scared of that thing because I do have an AV Crocodile, which can take on pretty much any variant of Jirachi aside from an Iron Head one. And if he's physical, then I have my Intimidate Mega Manectric, I have my Pex, I have my Latios, all things that can kind of deal with that. Latios less so than the other two, but still, he's never gonna flinch his way through a Pex. So yeah. Anyways, Hydreigon could be like a boosting item. It could be Scarf. Scarf is pretty good versus me, as Draco Meteor after Rocks is able to knock out my Mega Manectric, and it obviously can also check a non-Scarf Latios. And like, even though I do have switch-ins, he can gain momentum with U-turn, get a Nidoking, and one of the ways that he can break down my team is with momentum into Nidoking repeated multiple times, because my switch-ins to Nidoking do not have recovery outside of a Wish pass from Clefable, which is part of the reason why I have Wish on Clefable, to keep those Assault Vest users healthy, as I can Wish up versus a predicted Nidoking switch, as he doesn't really lose much by going Nidoking on my Clefable, and then I can bring back either my Croak or my Hariyama, whichever one is better at the time. But anyways, yeah, Mega Aerodactyl I feel like needs to be Stone Edge, Stone Edge, Earthquake for my Toxapex, Fire Fang for my Ferrothorn, and either Aqua Tail or Pursuit. I feel like Pursuit was more likely for my Latios, as Crocodile to him might not be the biggest threat because he does have a Lurantis, he does have the Hydreigon, he does have the Azumarill, so I feel like he would rather trap the Latios, which to him is a much bigger threat than my Crocodile. Azumarill, again, probably going to be Perish Trap or Belly Drum, whichever one he thinks is better in the matchup. I think Perish Trap is a little better, which is why I have my Toxapex set. But anyways, let's get right into the game. So he leads off with the Hydreigon, as I lead off with my Crocodile, again trying to prevent the Rocks, as if Nidoking gets a free switch in turn 1, he can get a Rocks on my switch out, say if I wanted to lead with my Clefable or something. Mega Aerodactyl as well could get a Rocks, although I don't think it has the moveset for it in this matchup. So either Nidoking or Jirachi would be able to get up Rocks, and Crocodile stops both of them. So that was why it was my lead of choice. He does lead with Hydreigon, and I know that this thing could be an issue, but I'm actually just going to go for the Superpower I'm going to go for the Knockoff because I am Assault Vest and I tank any hit from this thing, and I get rid of the leftovers, which is kind of strange. Now I know he's not a boosting item anymore, so Clefable is a pretty free switch. However, I'm just going to stay and go for the Superpower because I tank any hit again, and Superpower does 68, which is good damage. I know he's going to go for a Roost here, because why would you be bulky Hydreigon without a Roost? And yes, he does go for Roost, and now this is a perfect opportunity to get up my Stealth Rocks because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. And now he goes into his Nidoking. I'm going to go into my Crocodile on the predicted poison move, as the Hariyama was pretty obvious there. I had already shown, because I played Squirrel before, Matty Brawlick, that Assault Vest Hariyama was my Nido switch-in, and so he knows this going into the game. So I'm going to go into my Crocodile knowing that he would predict that, and he does go for the Poison Jab. It does 13, and I'm able to get in my Crocodile, and I'm able to just go for an Earthquake. Now Lurantis comes in, and this thing I do have my Clefable for, so I believe I just go straight into my Clefable. Now I go to my Latios because it covers the Leaf Storm, and since he is chipped, I can definitely get off a pretty big hit here because he would go down to an offensive Draco Meteor most likely. But anyways, he does go for the Superpower, does 17, not very much. And here, I believe I'm just going to go for the Shadow Ball, predicting either the Jirachi or the Azumarill to come in. If he goes Jirachi there, I gain a whole lot of offensive momentum versus him because I damaged one of his best switch-ins to my Latios. And if he's defensive, after Rocks, Shadow Ball into the Never-Ending Nightmare would be able to knock out any form of special defensive Jirachi. Maybe it would be a roll if it was Max Spadef or Kasib Berry. But yeah, it does a lot of damage. Anyways, this Azumarill comes in. I go into my Pex because it covers any Azumarill sets. Even if he's banded, I can, well, knockoff at +6 is a roll. However, if he goes for Belly Drum, I know he's forced to knock off, and I can go into my Clefable on that knockoff and get it in for free. I am unaware, so he won't be able to touch me with that. Anyways, Toxapex is my play. He goes for the Protect, revealing the Perish Trap. He goes for the Whirlpool here, as I just go for a Scald because I don't want him to know my set yet. I want him to go for the Perish Song first, as that's how I'm going to get him. But anyways, here, I am going to go for the Infestation, expecting the Perish Song. However, he actually goes for the Aqua Ring, which I found really strange, honestly. I don't know why he wouldn't Perish Song there, because, well, first of all, if he kind of just messes around like this, Toxapex will be able to escape the Whirlpool in time for the Perish Song to be ineffective, even if I wasn't Shed Shell. But regardless, it's the play that he decided to go for, and here I'm just going to click Scald. As he goes for a Whirlpool again, by the way, that does not reset the Whirlpool, it just does the 3% damage and has no other effect. I'm going to go for the Recover here, just because I want to keep my Toxapex healthy. And is it here that I get freed from the Whirlpool? No, it's next turn. Anyways, he goes for the Perish Song, as I go for another Scald. And here, I believe I get freed from the, yeah, I'm freed from the Whirlpool. I could switch if I wanted to, however, I don't need to switch. I have the Shed Shell. So what I want to do is here, he is freed from the Infestation. Now I know that he wants to go for the Whirlpool to trap me in, and I want to go for the Infestation to trap him in. So that's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to try to trap me in with the Whirlpool. I'm going to go for the Infestation, and now I'm going to switch out. And here I make probably the only misplay of the game. I go into my Clefable here. Now I probably should have gone into, say, my Crocodile or something like that, because this thing had already revealed its full moveset. Aqua Ring, Protect, Perish Song, Whirlpool. And Clefable being in isn't the greatest thing in the world because that gives a free switch in to the Nidoking. But regardless, I do go Clefable on the Protect, reveal the Shed Shell, and bop, that's a dead Azumarill. But anyways, again, this does give him a free Nidoking. If he wants to get up rocks, this is his chance to do it. If he wants to just hit something as well, that's also completely fair. I go to my Hariyama this time because I know he's going to try to predict the Crocodile this time. And Hariyama, I do have the thick fat, so the Ice Beam is going to do literally 9. And now, Poison Jab is pretty cool, but it's not going to be able to 2-hit KO. He's actually Assault Vest Nidoking, which is kind of strange in my opinion. I think Rocks Nidoking or Life Orb would be so much better in this mashup. But I guess he was threatened so much by the Manectric that he felt he needed to run Assault Vest on his Nidoking. So that's pretty cool. That means that this thing is not going to be able to knock out my Hariyama, and I'm able to knock it out with knockoff into close combat. And yeah, so now he goes into Aerodactyl. I'm going to keep my sack fodder in case I need it later, because I know that Clef should be able to wall this thing. Even if he's Hone Claws, I can still take it. He actually reveals the Iron Head here though, and this is something I was not expecting, but fortunately clefable is a god and tanks that Iron Head. It does literally less than I'm healing with Wish Protect. But now I know that I can't stay in because of flinch chance. I would just be playing with fire and I'm going to lose that eventually. So here I'm going to go into my Toxapex because even if he goes for Earthquake, I tank 2 of them. And here he's forced out due to the Scald burn potential. And I do just go for the Scald, and I don't burn the Hydreigon, but that's okay. I have a Clefable, and he is kind of forced to roost, and he's not going to Flash Cannon a Toxapex in front of him, I don't think. So I'm able to get up my Clef back up to pretty much full now. And even if he did go for the Flash Cannon, I do have some Spadef, and I know that he's not really offensive on his Hydreigon, so he's not going to 2-hit KO my Clef anyways. And even if he did for some reason 2-hit KO, I can always just go back out into Pex, and it's completely fine for me. I don't really lose anything. But anyways, I'm going to go into my Crocodile on the Jirachi with the Wish in the air. No matter what he did, Crocodile was getting back to full, even if he had like Moonblast or something. But yeah, here I'm going to go for knockoff because it's literally free. He's going to go for the Roost. I go for the Superpower because, again, he doesn't have a Fighting Resist, and if he wanted to switch out for some reason, I could get off big damage, and regardless, I am able to leave this Hydreigon at lower health than I would have if I didn't Superpower, so it's pretty much a no drawback play. And now I get the 3-switch into my Clefable. I'm able to just fire off a Moonblast for free, but I actually go for the Wish, predicting a switch out, and now I'm going to go right back into my Crocodile, as once again it is free. I do actually get the reverse Intimidate on this Lurantis, but I know that I tank any hit, and I feel like there's no way he's going for a Synthesis here, so I am just going to take out the Lurantis with Knockout into Superpower, which is a guaranteed kill right there. He was not physically defensive. Anyways, he goes into his Aerodactyl. I know that my Toxapex can take 2 Earthquakes, but he does get a crit, so that's pretty unfortunate, and now he is able to go for the Aerial. He's predicting my Clefable. Now I'm just going to go for Protect because it's literally free. Free leftovers is nice. And now I'm going to try to outplay this Aerodactyl. I know that he could Earthquake, predicting my Toxapex to come in. And if he Iron Heads, I can live the next Earthquake potentially and just recover up. So here, I know that Protect is going to be my play because he can easily Earthquake here, predicting the Pex. And yeah, but here, he does go for the Earthquake, predicting the Pex once more. I go for the Wish. And here I am able to pass that safely into my Toxapex. Even a crit wouldn't knock me out, and my Pex is back to literally 90%. I was about to say full, but it's just 90. I go for Recover, predicting the Earthquake, and if he switches I don't lose anything, so that was pretty much a free Recover. He goes on Hydreigon. I'm just going to go for the Infestation because he can't touch me. The best he can do is like Taunt, in which case I can just switch out into my Clefable after anyways. And anyways, let's go back that turn actually, getting a little ahead of myself. But anyways, Infestation here, this traps in any switch in that he wants to do, and if he did stay in with Hydreigon, I could trap that in, and his best way of hitting is like Draco Meteor, which lowers a special attack, so having that thing locked in, I could fish for burns, I could get my Clefable in for free, fire off a free Moonblast. This Jirachi is revealed to be offensive with no leftovers, so any chip on Jirachi is there to stay. Anyways, here I go to my Latios because it's pretty clear that this thing is especially offensive because, first of all, it doesn't have leftovers, and he went for Psychic earlier versus my Crocodile switch-in, so I know that he wants to have enough special attack to be able to threaten the Toxapex, because if he isn't offensive, Toxapex still walls Jirachi, as well as the Clefable would wall a special Jirachi. Just my entire team walls special Jirachi unless he's like super offensive, so I know that he's going to be offensive, and this means that Z Shadow Ball be able to knock him out. If he was Scarf, it didn't matter because, well, I'm a Latios. So that kind of covered everything. Now he goes into his Aerodactyl. I know this thing, the best thing it has to hit me is Stone Edge or Pursuit. Now, earlier I was saying how he could definitely have Pursuit on this thing. That's why I EV'd particularly for that thing. And Stone Edge, if he Stone Edges into my Toxapex, which is at full at this point in the game, he does kind of just straight up lose. I think he loses already, to be honest, to the clefable, because Hariyama just picks this thing up with a bullet punch. He can't exactly switch. Actually, no. Take back what I said. Hariyama just wins at this point. So at this point, I'm just playing for differential. Can I 6-0 Matty Brawler? And you're going to see right here, I can. I just go for the Psyshock on the Pursuit as I stay in. And now he goes into Hydreigon. You know I'm not about to risk the 90% Draco Meteor. I'm going hard Clefable on this thing because he revealed to be Mono Dark Pulse at this point with the Defog. And I'm just going to claim this Hydreigon with the Moonblast, and that is the second game of my pools. And yeah, so I 6-0'd. Nice. Anyways, next up. This is versus Andrew. And let me get the team real quick. So this is Andrew. He has a very scary draft. Kyurem Black. Oof. So Kyurem Black is a big threat, especially a Z move Kyurem Black with like Z Freeze Shock. That just OHKO's Clefable, I'm pretty sure. Might be a roll, but yeah. Toxapex cannot really take that many Gigavolt Havocs, Fusion Bolts even. Although if a Kyurem Black is intimidated, Toxapex does wall it, so that's pretty nice to keep in mind. But yeah, Kyurem Black is just a huge threat no matter what set it is. If it's Scarf, it can revenge all my offense. If it's a Breaker Z move set, it can break my defense. And yeah, it's just a menace to go up against. Mega Venusaur, again, it's not the worst thing in the world to face because I do have a Latios, I do have my Toxapex, and I have my Archeops, all of which threaten Mega Venusaur either offensively or defensively. Toxapex just walls it. It can even like PP stall Mega Venusaur if I really want to. But yeah, Mega Venusaur can deal with half of my team, but it can't deal with the other half, so I'm fine with that. I mean, pretty scary stuff. Slurpuff can Belly Drum, but I have a Pex and a Ferrothorn, so I don't really feel like Slurpuff is that likely to be brought. And if he does, it's probably going to be like Webs or something. And I didn't actually bring Defog on this team because two of my offensive mons are flying, or at least levitating, and Mega Manectric is not really meant to break, so I don't really need it to be that fast, although you'll see the Mega Manectric set in a minute. But anyways, let's get into my team real quick. Latios is going to be Z Draco this match because a Habanberry Kyurem Black is quite threatening, as it can eat up a regular Draco Meteor and knock me out with the stab of his choice, as well as Z Draco just literally nukes anything that's not Slurpuff, because, well, Rhyperior, unless it's max special defense, cannot take a Z Draco Meteor. Mega Venusaur cannot take a Psychic, Kyurem Black cannot take a Z Draco Meteor even if it's Haban. Well, if it's Haban it might take one from full, but after Rocks, probably not. Skarmory, I do have Thunderbolt, and Z Draco into Thunderbolt is going to be a kill on that thing, I'm fairly certain. Starmie cannot take a Z Draco. Nothing can really take a Z Draco very well. And fortunately, due to his speed tiers, I am able to run Modest Latios. Yes. So yeah, we're hitting almost 400 special attack with a Z Draco Meteor. Nothing really appreciates that. Anyways, next up is my Clefable. This is almost exactly the ORS Clefable spread with Thunder Wave, so even more ORS. Stealth Rock, Soft Boiled, Moonblast. I decided to bring Stealth Rock Clefable because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. Thunder Wave is nice for the Mega Venusaur and the Skarmory and the Entei and the Kyurem Black, although Moonblast is also great for Kyurem Black. T-Wave also can neuter a Slurpuff, so T-Wave is nice. Also, I would be lying if I didn't say I was hoping for some Parahacks versus the Mega Venusaur to help take it down. But, like, we use the Yellow Magic for a reason, no lie. Anyways, this EV spread is to tank 2 Life Orb Hydro Pumps from Starmie. It does like 52.7, so after leftovers that's live. And the rest is in defense. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Next up is my Toxapex. This is going to be primarily physically defensive for the Kyurem Black, as well as a little bit of special defense for the Mega Venusaur. The physical defense also allows me to take any Rhyperior hit that isn't boosted by a Choice Band or something. And I can Scald him back for some big damage, potentially get a burn. Toxic Spikes are pretty nice versus team if I can remove the Mega Venusaur, as nothing really appreciates Toxic Spikes. If Kyurem Black gets Toxic, it's just way easier to deal with. Same thing with the Rhyperior, the Starmie, pretty much his whole team. That's pretty much it for Toxapex, it's just self-explanatory. Next up is my Ferrothorn. This is more of a dedicated switch into Kyurem Black, as I can actually take a Z Freeze Shock after rocks with this spread. Aqua Berry allows me to take HP Fires. I believe that's not even a 2-hit KO on my spread, unless he's like max special attack with a boosting item like Life Orb, which I don't expect in this matchup. Leech Seed is nice for some recovery. Power Up Gyro Ball and Spikes. I am walled by Mega Venusaur, but that's okay because I can get up Spikes versus that thing, and he's forced to defog or spin those away. If he goes for the spin route, well, I'll just get him right back up because Ferrothorn is a great switch into Starmie as well, unless it's Hidden Power Fire, which I don't think he has the move slots to be able to run on his Starmie unless he wants to lose out coverage versus other mons, or not have spin, or recover. So, like, Starmie definitely has 4 move slots in this game, and I want to abuse that with my Spikes. Yeah, pretty nice mixed defensive Aqua Berry Ferrothorn here. Next up is my Archeops with no item. This thing kind of goes ham versus this team. It can definitely sweep late game if I can get rid of the Skarmory. And even then, Heat Wave is doing a considerable amount to that thing, unless it's max special defense, which I do have a Latios. I kind of expect max special defense Skarmory, as I don't really have any offensive physical threats that really force Skarmory to run any EVs in physical defense. But yeah, Stone Edge kind of smacks his team. Aqua Tail is there for the Rhyperior, Acrobatics for the Mega Venusaur. This thing can definitely put in some work. Again, I can run a boosting nature Lonely on my base 110 speed mod because of his speed tiers. I don't need to creep an Entei because that thing has to be adamant, and even if he does bring Entei, I have a Toxapex, that thing is completely an unmon. But anyways, next up is my Mega Manectric. Now this thing is not a big threat versus team, I'll be honest. However, we are going for some yellow magic once again, as I feel like that's probably my easiest way to break Mega Venusaur is to get some yellow magic. And so that's why I have Discharge. Yeah, I'm complete scum, but Discharge, Volt Switch, Hidden Power Grass for the Rhyperior and the Starmie in case he wants to switch in on that for some reason. It's just a little bit better than HP Water in this matchup. But yeah, Grass and Flamethrower. I don't really need the power of Overheat in this match, so having Flamethrower is perfectly fine. To be honest, I don't really need Flamethrower that much either, but it's probably my best way to hit the Kyurem Black. But anyways, yeah, I am able to run Modest once again on my Manectric. Here I am creeping the Starmie, and yeah, it's just a nice mod versus his team. If I can get the Discharge Para versus the Kyurem Black, that's really nice, as that means that my clefable can outspeed him. And even if he's Scarf, Latios will be able to outspeed him, and Archeops. But anyways, that's going to be my team versus Andrew. Let's see how the game went. So as you can see, he decided to bring these Pokemon. The Venusaur is pretty much the biggest defensive threat, along with maybe the Skarm, but Kyurem Black is clearly the biggest offensive threat, depending on the set, of course. Scrafty, I'm not really sure what it's going to do because I do have a Clefable and a Pex, so it's kind of hard for him to sweep with a Dragon Dance variant, so I'm very interested to see what he decided to bring there. Anyways, let's get into the game. I lead off with my Tox Pex, as I can potentially get up T-Spikes, pressure his Venusaur switch in, get a Scald Burn. Anyways, he does decide to leave with Starmie, and I have a Ferrothorn here, so I'm just going to go right out into it. As he reveals with this damage, he has 0 special attack on his Starmie, which is nice. Here I'm just going to take this as an opportunity to get up the Spike, predicting the Venusaur switch in, but he actually goes hard Kyurem on a Ferrothorn, so I'm pretty confused about that. But here, he decides to take the Gyro Ball, and he does 37 to my Ferrothorn with Ice Beam, revealing max special attack. But here he's going to go into his Skarmory and get some helmet damage off. Now he's going to defog, I know this is going to happen, so I go for the Leech Seed, but I miss. That would have been really nice because then I would have a healthy Ferrothorn as well as have free Spikes the next turn, and Spikes would be able to stay up and my Ferrothorn would be at about 50% here. But he does let me get up the Spike anyways, and so it's not the worst thing in the world, although of course I would like my Ferrothorn to be a little bit healthier. But now Toxpex comes in on the Mega Venusaur. I can just go for the T-Spike, because if he wants to stay in, something either needs to get toxic or he goes on a Skarmory on my Pex, which gives me a free Manectric. Now here, I'm going to try to catch the Rhyperior upon switch in, because even if he goes Venusaur, it doesn't matter because I can just Hidden Progress into Volt Switch, and the same result is happening versus if I just Volt Switched hard. I still go Pex, it does nothing, and I can just either pressure him with a T-Spike or fish for a Scald Burn. And here I think I just go for a T-Spike, yeah. And now he has Kyurem. I know that this thing could have sub, but I wanted to go for the Scald anyways, potentially get a burn, and it does 6. That's nothing. And Toxpex is weak and all, but that's not just a regular Kyurem, that's specially defensive Kyurem. And not just max HP either, like this is max special defense, max special attack Kyurem, if my calcs are correct. So that's pretty funny. But anyways, he does reveal sub here as I just go for another Scald. Here, I know that I can take what's the move? A Fusion Bolt. And you're going to see that does 45. But here I'm going to go to my Clefable, because if he is Gigavolt Havoc, now is the time to go for it. And Clefable can tank that with an Ice Beam, so I just go into it as that does 32. As we already revealed that from the Pex damage that he is like 0 attack, and we know he's max special defense, max special attack, so Clefable is able to eat that. He does get a crit on the Ice Beam, which doesn't really matter, and now he's actually going to switch out into the Venusaur on the next soft build, not wasting any time with that. I feel like he definitely could have fished for the freeze there a little bit more versus my Clefable, because that's his best way of breaking my Clefable with the Kyurem Black. But anyways, here I'm going to go on my Toxpex once again on the Venusaur, always a free switch. And here I'm actually going to double into Clefable because I want to get those rocks up. I actually go for the T-Wave here because I want the Skarmory to be paralyzed, basically. I want it to have that 25% every turn of not doing a thing. So if I do get up my rocks, he has a chance not to be able to remove them as I switch into my Manectric on that turn. Anyways, here, he's paralyzed Venusaur, and I know that he's going to double predicting my Toxpex, so I just get him up. Because Clefable, Rock's Clefable is broken, and we'll always get them up. But anyways, I'm just going to go for a Moonblast here because Kyurem Black is in. And now, I go into my Manectric on the Skarmory because, well, if he defogs, I get in my Manectric for free. If he roofs, he's kind of forced out, and I keep my rocks up. So that's pretty cool. And now, again, I'm going to try to catch the Rhyperior because there's no reason not to. Venusaur comes in, and I'm just going to be able to Volt on that thing next turn anyways, and go right back out into my Toxpex as he gets the Yellow Magic. Now I'm going to double in my Latios because there's nothing that you do here besides Synthesis, and getting my Latios in on the Synthesis is nice, as I can start smacking his team. However, he does get paralyzed twice. Nice Yellow Magic. But here he goes into his Scrafty. Now I was thinking he might do this, but I felt like Psychic was still the safer play because if I Draco Meteored into a Skarmory, I would be -2, and depending on how much that did, Thunderbolt might not be able to knock it out. But anyways, I just go for the safe play Psychic as he goes into his Scrafty and reveals the leftover. So I'm just going to go into my Toxapex as he reveals the Super Fang, which is pretty cool prep. It is able to knock off half of my damage, half my HP, and he actually reveals Shed Skin here as well as I get the Scald Burn. So that's pretty cool prep. However, it's not going to be able to break my Toxapex unless he has Taunt, which, matter of fact, he does. As I go for another Scald, get another burn, 2 for 2 versus the Scrafty, so that's pretty nice. And here I'm going to get my regen, go into my Manectric as, I don't know what I really expected. This was kind of a weird play on my part, but I decided to go Manectric, and there's nothing I can do about it now. As I Volt Switch out into Clefable, I should have gone Clefable hard the first time, and now I just click Moonblast because there's no I go for Soft Boiled because I wanted my Clefable healthy as he taunts me. And now, he could go into his Venusaur, however it's getting low. He could go into his Skarmory, but again that's getting low as well. It'd be forced to roost, and I get another Manectric. So I'm just going to go for the Moonblast because I have really no drawback as he just sacks the Scrafty. I'm not really sure why, but he did it. In comes the Skarmory, and I believe I just go into my Manectric here. Yep. As he does go for the Defog, and once again I'm going to try to snipe the Rhyperior. And now I'm going to go for the Volt Switch on the Kyurem. I know that my Clefable walls his entire set because he's revealed all 4 moves. He doesn't have a thing to touch me outside of potentially Z Ice Beam, so I want to make sure I'm out of range of that. However, I'm not in range of that right now, so that's cool. And I go for the Soft Boiled, and I get my Clef back up to 94, and now I go to my Pex because I don't want to risk the freeze if I don't have to. And if I'm able to PP stall the Fusion Bolts, then my Toxapex can beat this Kyurem 1v1. And here he does go for the Fusion Bolt, gets a crit, which is unfortunate because now I have to risk more freezes with my Clefable, as he actually crits my Clefable as well. So here I go into my Toxapex on the Ice Beam because there's no way you Fusion Bolt there as he gets the freeze. So this is a pretty zesty game as for some reason he switches into his Venusaur here. Now I cannot tell you why he switched into Venusaur. I think that Fusion Bolt was pretty free there, which is why of course I went to Ferrothorn, but I was just sacking it off to the combination of Fusion Bolt plus Ice Beam. Then I was going to try to get my Clefable in to Soft Boiled up on the move. But anyways, he decided to switch out, I'll take it, and now I'm going to take this as an opportunity to get my Toxapex unfrozen with Scald. So that's nice, and here I know he's going to go for the Defog, so I'm just going to go into my Latios because it's time to get it popping with the Thunderbolts. And this thing is a huge threat versus his team. I know that Kyurem is not Scarf. The only thing faster than me is the Starmie, and Starmie cannot switch into Latios. So I'm just going to go straight for the Thunderbolt. He actually tanks that pretty easily, but I get the full para. So some revenge hacks for the double crit freeze, I guess. Yellow Magic really. Basically, I got a lot of Yellow Magic this game. He got crits and a freeze, but I was able to outplay that a bit. And now the Skarmory's dead, and rocks are there to stay. So now he goes into Starmie, which is unable to 2-hit KO me with anything, and Latios basically just wins at this point. I can Thunderbolt the Starmie, Z-Draco the Rhyperior, because after Rock Theme, if he's max special defense, it's likely a roll in my favor to knock him out with Z-Drake. Kyurem dies to the Psychic, and so does Venusaur. And here he goes for the Ice Beam, and you already know he got the freeze. And now he's able to go into his Rhyperior, which is really annoying, as I actually go into Pex, and now this is where it all kind of goes downhill. He goes for Rock Polish as I Scald, and he gets the Weakness Policy and avoids the burn. Now this is the game. So I'm actually going to go my Arc Gas because I know 100% he's going to go for the Earthquake, and at this point I was thinking, well, I just got to dodge an edge, right? So I go to my Archeops, and now I'm thinking, well, I don't need to try to dodge an edge because Archeops kills every Pokemon on his team once Rhyperior is dead. So I definitely don't want to sack it off. So I actually go into my Ferrothorn because, for one, this isn't really too useful anymore, so I can just sack it off. And if I get 2 Intimidates off with my Manectric, my Clefable eats a hit, and so does my Toxapex. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. I'm going to go to my Ferrothorn on the Ice Punch, so he's not messing around with missing. I get some Iron Barbs, which isn't really that important. Go to my Manectric. I'm able to double out into my Latios, sacking it off because it is frozen. If he had SD here, that could have been bad, but I had to bank on him not having SD. And Earthquake, Ice Punch, I mean, it's decent coverage versus me, no lie, but I feel like he would have Stone Edge. But anyways, I guess he didn't really need Stone Edge because those attacks kind of hit everything. But anyways, here I get off my second Intimidate and I just sack off my Manectric because I don't need it anymore. Because now my Toxapex and my Clefable both take a hit. He would need to double crit me here. So fortunately Toxapex is not crit. I get the Scald off and that's a dead Rhyperior. And now he's going to go into his Kyurem Black. And I know that he could sub, which he does elect to do. So I go for the Recover. If he didn't sub, I could go into my Archeops and just win, or my Clefable and get off a Moonblast, forcing Kyurem to take more rocks, and then my Archeops actually just wins on its own. But anyways, Recover was the play there, and now my Toxapex is healthy. I get off of a T-Spike just because I don't have anything better to do really right now, as he goes for Fusion Bolt, and I'm just going to speed through this a little bit because it's kind of stally here. Basically, I'm just stalling out the Fusion Bolts, because once I PP stall that, Toxapex will be able to PP stall the Kyurem, and I won't even have to fear any freezes because I have Scald. Anyways, he goes into his Venusaur here, and I'm just going to go hard in my Archeops because Synthesis is the only play in that situation. And now I'm just going to go for the Acrobatics. Does 75, so Venusaur is pretty fat, but not fat enough to live Acrobatics into a defeatist Acrobatics, and Starmie goes down to Rocks. Kyurem gets poisoned. Is it Psych? No, it actually turns out to be Lumberry. However, I'm going to switch out into my Toxapex because, well, differential. You always preserve. And I do actually get the burn on the Kyurem here. And he actually speeds things up a little bit by sacking Starmie and then sacking Kyurem to Rocks. And that's going to be my third pools match. And now at this point, I'm guaranteed first seed. Because Squirtle, he had to play early, so he played all his matches. He went 3-1, and I'm 3-0 at this point, so even if I lose my next match, I still am 3-1, and I have the head-to-head versus him. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, let's get into the last matchup of pools. This is versus Danaki. And you can see his team right here. He has the Mega Kangaskhan, Clefable, Scolipede, Mamoswine, Reuniclus, Silvally, Jolteon, and Dusclops. Basically the biggest threats are Jolteon and offensive Clefable. Scolipede can also be a big threat. Mamoswine, also a big threat. This is probably the worst matchup I had in pools. But anyways, let's get right into the prep. I noticed that his ground resist is Silvally, which is not a great ground resist. So first thing, Banded Crocodile. I could also have been Scarf Crocodile, which would have been kind of cool. However, Banded just kind of picks one up every time it comes in. I am speed creeping the Mamoswine here, and yeah, so Earthquake, knock off Low Kick, and Pursuit. Low Kick is for the Mamoswine in case I wanted to do a little bit more damage to that. Pursuit is in case I wanted to catch a Reuniclus switching out. Knockoff is if I want to catch a Reuniclus switching or staying in, or a Dusclops. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Crocodile. Pretty straightforward. Next up is my Latios, which is going to be Scarf Trick, because his switch-ins to Latios are an AV Reuniclus or a Clefable, both of which get crippled by a Scarf Trick. So that's pretty cool. And also, if he wanted to run an Adamant Scolipede for some reason, I'm able to outspeed that at +1, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, this thing also outspeeds Jolteon, which is probably one of the bigger offensive threats versus me, because again, T-Bolt, Volt Switch, Signal Beam, HP Fire has no counters on my team aside from Assault Vest Hariyama, which you see I have down here. Anyways, next up is my physically defensive Ferrothorn, because Scolipede is a thing, as well as Mamoswine. I have the Spikes, Gyro Ball, Knockoff, Leech Seed. Just kind of hits his whole team pretty decently. Knockoff is there to remove leftovers from Uniclus, remove Eviolite from Dusclops, remove leftovers from Clefable, remove the Life Orb from Mamoswine, even though I can just knock that out with Gyro Ball. It's just nice if I want to cover more options, as well as knock off a Life Orb or something from Jolteon, which is also incredibly useful in switching into that thing with my Hariyama, because again, Hariyama doesn't have recovery. But anyways, Spikes are pretty nice versus his team. A lot of his team is grounded, as we went over with no ground resist Crocodile. But yeah, that's pretty much the Ferrothorn set. Next up is my Clefable with Stealth Rock, because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. Moonblast and Encore, because if my opponent decides to try to set up with Scolipede in my Clefable's face, I can Encore that thing. If he decides to try to set up with Uniclus, I can Encore that, as well as a Combine Dusclops. Dusclops is not really a thing versus me because I do have Haze Pex, but if he decides to bring it, so be it. I have Encore, as well as Moonblast, just kind of hits pretty much everything bar the Scolipede for some nice damage. I guess Silvally Poison or something like that, but yeah. If he brings Silvally, I think it'll be flying to help deal with Crook. But anyways, next up is my Toxapex, which is going to be physically defensive. Helmet, this is for the Mega Kangaskhan, as well as the Scolipede. I can tank pretty much any hit from either of those things, bar a +2 Z move, I guess, if he were ZEQ versus my Toxapex. But anyways, I can Haze, I can Toxic Spike, because Toxic Spikes just go in versus his team once Scolipede is down. It's very annoying because if he wants to remove Toxic Spikes, he has to take rocks with Scolipede, because his hazard removal is not very good. It's just Silvally. So chances are I will have rocks up, because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. But yeah, Pex is pretty nice. If he goes for a turn, that's nice with his Kangaskhan, because I'll take Rocky Helmet and I can regen that back. Anyways, next up is my Assault Vest Hariyama, because Jolteon. And that's pretty much it. Let's go into the game. And here you can see he brought some Mons. Don't feel like doing a whole in-depth analysis on this one, so I'm just going to play through the replay. I lead off with my Crook because he didn't bring the Silvally. EQ just nabs one, turn one. So let's go for Earthquake, predicting this to be Sash Rocks, as he reveals he's most likely Sash Rocks by just going for the Ice Shard, doing non-Life Orb damage. Then I goes into his Clefable. As I go into my own Clefable, he actually tricks his Scarf. And now I'm just going to get up my rocks as he goes for the Moonblast. And now I'm going to go into my Toxapex. And he goes for Psychic. And that's a good play. But I go into my Ferrothorn and he goes for Flamethrower, which, yeah, so my defensive core is just completely shattered at this point. Scollipede's a big threat. Kang is a big threat. Jolteon's a big threat. Even Clefable on its own is a big threat. I have to sax right here, so I just sack my Ferrothorn. And then I go into my Clefable, as I can Moonblast this, and potentially 1v1 it because he revealed he doesn't have Soft Boiled, as we both get special attack drops. And here actually goes into Scolipede. And because of the special attack drop, he's able to actually SD up, and this actually puts him out of range of my Hariyama's Fake Out. If he didn't get the drop, I could go into Hariyama Fake Out here, and it would have probably killed. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Now here, I live a +2 Poison Jab, and I really didn't expect him to be Z Poison Jab versus a Toxapex and a Ferrothorn, so I just stay in, and he goes for the Z Bug, and knocks up my Hariyama. Was not expecting that to kill, honestly. I thought I just could live that and knock him out, although even then, Jolteon just kind of comes in and cleans up, but yeah, this game was pretty good. Here I actually go into the Toxpex on the Mega Horn. I baited that out with the Crook. And now I know he's going to go for the EQ, so I go into my Latios. Now here, kind of a 50-50. He doesn't really need to predict though, so he can just click Mega Horn, and even if I go into my Pex, Jolteon just comes in and cleans. But I'm going to predict and go for the Earthquake because he might be like, oh, I'm going to predict the Pex, huh. But he actually mixes Mega Horn. So I'm able to get the Psychic off with my Latios, and that's pretty nice. However, this thing comes in. I'm able to get off some chip with my Helmet Pex. This puts it in Psychic range for my Latios, so that's pretty cool. I just knock it out with Psychic, but now he can go into the clefable. I don't have a Moonblast switch in at this point, so I'm able to just go for Psychic, as I actually live the Moonblast, which is surprising. But I do knock out the clefable the next turn, and now this thing comes in. I could potentially crit it, but even then it wouldn't kill, and he could just Signal Beam twice here to wrap up the game. And yeah, that's going to be a loss in my pools, but it doesn't matter because I already secured my first seed in the bracket round. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, now let's move on to the next thing. So I had to buy the first round because, well, I got first seed in my pool, and first seeds of the pools get a bye round 1. So that's pretty nice. And now let's pull up the matchup for my round of 32. This is versus Big Daddy and the BBC's Big Black Crocs. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, honestly. If someone knows, that would be great. But anyways, Mew, Rotomwash, Zygarde, 50%, Skarm, Miltank, Diancie, Incineroar, Mega Heracross. I actually looked at his replays, and he actually brought a Scarf Miltank last game, so that's pretty fire. But you'll see this team is incredibly slow. Zygarde, Mew, those are your fast ones. Not really going to cut it, I don't think. Anyways, Latios is here with the Z Draco. Thunderbolt, Surf, Calm Mind. This thing bodies him. Like, actually bodies. If I can get a Calm Mind, nothing is really safe from this thing. A Spadef Diancie can take a +1 Surf, but Diancie, if his Spadef can't knock out Latios, if I have a Calm Mind, so that's pretty nice. Skarm gets blown away by T-Bolt. Everything else just gets blown away by the Z Draco or a regular Draco. It doesn't even have to be Z. But anyways, that's like my biggest breaker versus the team. Next I have my Clefable, which is going to be Unaware, Witch Protect, Moonblast, Stealth Rock, because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. This thing is the best thing I have for a Zygarde 50% as well as Mega Heracross. I'm able to avoid a 2-hit KO from both of them unless he's banded Iron Tail or a Z Iron Tail on his Zygarde, both of which can pose a threat to my Clefable. But anyways, this is the best I could really do versus the Mega Heracross, because if he's Swords Dance, I can't run Magic Guard, so that's kind of not great, but Max Defense does stuff. I can Wish Pass to my mons that don't have recovery, like my Ferrothorn, my Crocodile, that sort of thing. But yeah, pretty nice Pokemon versus his team. Next up is my Crocodile, which is going to be Taunt, Aerial Ace, Earthquake Knockoff. This attack of investment allows me to 2-hit KO a max HP Mega Heracross, because he doesn't have a very good reason to run any speed on Heracross, so I wanted to be able to 2-hit KO max HP. Knockoff is nice for removing items, as well as hitting Mew. Mew is a pretty big threat versus my team, as well as Earthquake, just general stab. Taunt is there for the Skarmory. It can prevent hazards from going up, can prevent a defog from going off, as well as I can also prevent Miltank from recovering up, as I am quite a fast Crocodile, and I don't expect Miltank to reach this sort of speed versus my team. Yeah. I also have the Intimidate over the Moxie for obvious reasons. This is a bulky Crocodile. Yeah, not much else to say here. Mega Manectric, the other Intimidate mon. Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, HP Ice, Overheat, very standard set, but due to his speed tiers, I can run a lot of bulk and a modest nature. So that's one of the better things about Mega Manectric. You can run a modest nature more often than not, as well as a lot of bulk. Yeah, so Hidden Power Ice for the Zygarde, pretty much. Thunderbolt Volt Switch for the majority of his team. Overheat is for the Mega Heracross pretty much exclusively. But yeah, it's worth having Overheat for that threat. Anyways, next up is my Ferrothorn, which is going to be Leftovers, Leech Seed, Gyro Ball, Spikes, and Power Whip. Again, bringing Spikes Ferrothorn. Max Defense, this helps me take on a Zygarde if he is running the Iron Tail for clefable. I also have a backup check in Ferrothorn, although this doesn't beat Coil. I don't know if you would bring Coil versus a clefable, so I feel like this is fine. Spikes Leech Seed is nice to annoy my opponent with hazards and chip damage in general. Gyro and Power Whip kind of hit the major targets. Gyro Ball is nice for the Mega Heracross, Diancie, just in general. Power Whip is there for Rotom Wash pretty much, as well as making sure I don't get PP stalled by a Sub-Protect Zygarde, although I don't think you'd run that versus Clefable again, but just in case. Yeah, and then I have my physically defensive Toxapex, which is a little bit of special defense. This is so that I can tank Earth Powers from an offensive Diancie, but yeah. This defense allows me to take, I believe, a +1 Earthquake from Heracross if he SDs and I get an Intimidate off. This thing can tank. I am not running Scald on this Toxapex because I did want Toxic and Toxic Spikes, and Haze is mandatory on Toxapex. You can't ever run a Toxapex without Haze, to be honest. I mean, you can, it's just not something you should do very often. Anyways, Black Sludge allows me to tank hits and get a little bit of passive recovery back, Regenerator, some nice ability. This thing is just very annoying for him to break. Anyways, let's get right into the game. And here we have it. You can see what he decided to bring. Let's just hop right into the battle, to be honest. Switch sides. He leads off with the Diancie. I lead off with my Manectric because I can Volt Switch on pretty much everything unless he wants to go Zygarde on my Manectric, in which case I get the Intimidate off because I Mega after the turn starts, so he has Zygarde in, I get the Intimidate off, and then, well, I can either get up Rocks with my Clefable or get up Spikes with Ferrothorn, depending on how I'm feeling. Probably Spikes with Ferrothorn because Clefable actually ignores the Intimidate because of Unaware, which is kind of dumb. But I do decide to go Ferrothorn on the Diancie because even if he Hidden Power fires, which I know he's not going to do turn 1, I tank, and I can get up a Spike here as he goes into the Heracross, which is a big threat. However, I do have the Clefable, which is about as good as it's going to get versus this thing. He does go for the Bullet Seed, predicting me quite nicely, but Clefable's really good, so I'm able to protect it, and now I'm pretty much outside of range unless he gets max rolls on every hit. And now I'm able to actually get up the Rocks as he reveals the Toxic, so that's unfortunate as now Clefable is much less of a check to Heracross and the Zygarde. I go into my Toxapex predicting another Toxic as now he goes for the Taunt, which I actually don't have an attacking move on Toxapex, so I'm literally forced out here. He doesn't know that though, so he tries to catch the Scald of some kind, but I go into my Crocodile, and now he reveals that he is Leftovers Mute, which is pretty nice for me, as now, since I am Taunt on my Crocodile, I can just go right for it because I don't expect him to be that fast of a Mew. Definitely slower than my Crocodile, so if I'm able to taunt it before it goes for the Will-O-Wisp, that's really nice for me. And I also taunt the Skarm coming in, which is pretty nice. I go for the knockoff, getting rid of the Leftovers, and I'm able to 1v1 this Skarm with my Crocodile, so that's pretty nice. It looks like Brave Bird's his only attacking move, but now, since his taunt ended, he's able to switch out on my next taunt. I'm fine with this because Skarm's at like, what, 10%? 12 after hazards. So he can't come in on any Pokemon bar the Toxapex, but he doesn't know that he can come in on Toxapex, and that's the thing. He has to assume that I have Scald, but anyways, I'm kind of talking over the battle at this point. Let's go back a turn. Here, I'm going to go to my Latios on the Rotom Wash as he goes for the Volt Switch, brings in his Mew and just going to drop to the Z Draco Meteor. I didn't feel like he was going to go into Diancie, because why would you go into Mew if you're going to go Diancie anyways? Why not just go Diancie in the first place? So I knew he wasn't expecting the Z Draco Meteor, so I just dropped it there and got my kill. And because the Skarm has Roost, well, I assume it has Roost, it has Brave Bird, it has Taunt, and it has Toxic. So it does not have Defog. Mew is likely a Defogger if he had a Defogger, so now my spikes are there to stay, and now Toxapex is able to get up a T-Spike whenever it wants to, which I am going to get up right now because I am physically defensive. I take any hit. If he wants to sub, that's fine. I mean, sub SD means he's lacking coverage for something, and I just go for the Haze because I know he's going to Swords Dance, and even if he doesn't, he's not going to do very much damage to me. So I just go for another Haze. And one of these times he goes for the Bullet Seed, yep, there on my Haze, and I'm going to go for the Haze again, and I'm just going to recover here. And Haze on his Swords Dance, and now I'm going to go to my Ferrothorn, just to see if he has close combat. I'm going to switch out into my Clefable, as he goes for the Pin Missile and the Bullet Seed here. And I'm going to break the sub here, go down to the Toxic, and now I go into my Crook, because I do have the Aerial Ace and I can check this thing. And now if he switches out, it's going to be poisoned at 25%, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. And Crocodile is just able to go for the Aerial Ace, and he switches into Rotom, which is a good play. However, I do have my Ferrothorn here, and I don't feel like he would ever click HP Fire versus a Latios, so I felt like Ferrothorn was a perfectly safe play. As he actually goes for the Toxic, so that's pretty nice for me. Now he's going to reveal the HP Fire, as I think I just go for the Leech Seed. And now, I know he's going to try to predict my Latios, and I want my Ferrothorn healthy, so I'm just going to get some more Leech Seed recovery right here, you know. And this actually covers the Skarm switch in as well, because since it was at 24, it is going to die to Rocks plus the Leech Seed. And now, Heracross comes in. I know this thing doesn't have close combat, however, Ferrothorn is very important, because without it, Zygarde is a huge threat versus me, because my Clefable went down pretty early in the game. So I'm going to go to my Toxapex, because you don't click Bullet Seed versus a Ferrothorn. So here he's going to go for the SD, which was a big boy play, I gotta admit. And now he knows that Bullet Seed kills my Pex. I know that Bullet Seed kills my Pex, which is why I'm going to stay in on the Pin Missile. Yeah, because for him, he kind of has to bank on me switching into Ferrothorn, trying to preserve my Toxapex for no reason, while Toxapex doesn't actually do very much in this game at this point. So he is going to go for the Choke once again, but again, I'm just going to click Recover, and I actually make it out with my Toxapex alive, which is nice. This is pretty nice for the Diancie, because now I actually have a switch into it, as well as a wall. But he actually reveals the Trick Room, which is pretty zesty. Now he's going to go into his Rotom, as I lay up another Toxic Spike, trying to get the Toxic on Zygarde rather than the regular poison. And I get the Toxic on Rotom as well as he Volt switches. And now he goes into his Zygarde, but since Trick Room is up, I know that my Ferrothorn is going to be faster, because it's literally the slowest thing on the field right now. And I am minus speed because of Gyro Ball, and there's no way Zygarde can underspeed a Ferrothorn. It's just common sense. I'm going to go for the Gyro Ball, because even if he is min speed, it still is consistent damage, whereas Power Whip could potentially miss, as he is going to go for another 1,000 arrows. And now I can just sack off my Ferrothorn, because he's going to go down to the Toxic. And now I believe my Latios just comes in and wins. Now my Manectric, that works too. Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt, Thunderbolt. And that's going to be the game for my round of 32. And let's get into the next one. So next up is the top 16 game. This is versus... actually, this is versus this guy again, Squirtle. This is a rematch from pools in the top 16. And so I definitely wanted to change up my team a little bit. Even though my team was very successful versus him the first time, I also flexed a lot, so I don't know if my team is actually that solid. I just know that I outplayed him a lot that first time, and I might not be able to do that again. So I definitely wanted to change some things up so that he wouldn't expect a few things that I bring. And of course, I brought the same 6 mons, but you know, I did this whole thing where I do that because I wanted to make it look like I had a completely new team. So I already went over the team the first time, so I'm going to go over just the differences now. First difference is that I have counter on clefable over, what did I have before? Thunderbolt. This is because Mega Gallade, if he goes for a +2 move, Moonblast is not able to knock it out, whereas counter, if I take any hits, will knock out Gallade 100% of the time. Again, Stealth Rock's Clefable because Stealth Rock's Clefable is broken and will always get them up. Crocodile is the same thing. The only difference is I have Moxie over Intimidate because, well, I felt like Moxie Sweep was the direction that I wanted to go this game rather than checking things through Intimidate. Toxapex, I believe, is the same. Yeah, same. Manectric, I messed with the EV spread a little bit so that I could live, what was it? It was to live something. I think I wanted to make Jolteon's attacks not a 3-hit KO. So I think that's what the bulk is for. Anyways, that's my set. Latios, I changed the Z move from Water to Dragon, and that's it. Other than that, it's the same team. And let's get right into the game. So, one difference here is that he decided to bring Tangrowth over the Tyranitar because, well, Crocodile bodied him last time. He definitely needed to bring the Tangrowth this time, and fortunately for me, T-Tar was the mon he decided to leave out. Now this means my Latios has free reign to come in whenever it wants, which is super nice for me. Anyways, let's get right into the game. Switch sides. As he leads off with his Nidoqueen, I lead off with my Latios because it's free and it prevents rocks. Now I go for the Draco Meteor because it's my hardest hitting move versus literally every mon versus except for his steals. I thought about going for Thunderbolt, but it just wasn't worth it. And he reveals he's Assault Vest and Empoleon there. So I go into my Toxapex as he makes a nice double into Nidoqueen. However, I know that I can tank even a Life Orb hit, so I just stay in with my Toxapex to go for the knockoff. He reveals the Black Sludge, so that was his Manectric answer there. But anyways, here I'm going to go for the Scald. He goes to Celesteela, and he goes for the substitute. But Scald is doing 14 as a 2-hit KO on the subs, so I don't mind this too much. But he reveals the Metal Sound, which is very nice prep on his part. It allows him to 1v1 my Pex with his Celesteela, so that's pretty cool. However, I go into my Latios, predicting the Air Slash, and he misses. That wouldn't have done too much, but Chip is Chip, so I'm actually going to go for the Thunderbolt here. As he goes into his Empoleon, does 27. I get the para. Nice yellow magic once again. I go into my Toxapex here, as he goes for the Ice Beam, and here, I believe I just go for the Scald, yeah. As he was kind of forced out with his Empoleon and nothing wants to come in on a Scald Burn. So here I go into Manectric on the Volt Switch because I felt like Volt Switch was the play. And Manectric coming in, I didn't want to risk my Crocodile first of all, because Crocodile is super important in this game. It checks Gallade and it can sweep late game. But anyways, Manectric, not as useful as Crocodile, so I'm more comfortable risking it, as well as Jolteon can't do much to me anyways. Anyways, here I'm going to go for the HP Ground. I do outspeed the Jolteon, and he goes for the Volt Switch. Now Jolteon whittled down to 32 is super nice for me. And now Nidoqueen comes in. Unfortunately, even at +1, I cannot knock this thing out, as he goes for the Earthquake. So Hariyama's Assault Vest is not going to be too useful, but I'm going to go for the Earthquake here, as he goes into Tangrowth, and he reveals that he's Physically Defensive Rocky Helmet, which is pretty weird. I think Assault Vest is a lot better Tangrowth set to bring versus me, but anyways, he brought Helmet, so we're going to live with it. I go to Rock Clefable here because Stealth Rock's Clefable is broken and will always get them up. He goes for Worry Seed, which is interesting prep. That means he can potentially toxic my clefable, and for however long I stay in, I will be taking toxic damage. However, I'm not going to allow that. I'm just going to go into my Pex and go for the Scald, because again, nothing wants to come in on a Scald. The only thing that doesn't mind Scald is Empoleon, which I wall 100% of the time. And now I'm just going to Scald again. As he goes into Jolteon, I get a crit, and he actually dies to that. So now Gallade comes in. I'm going to go into my Clefable as he goes for the Swords Dance. I know he's going to Poison Jab, but I'm just going to sack my Clefable because at this point I can go into my Crocodile and hit him up with a Foul Play again. So that's 2 for 2, him losing Gallade to my Scarf Foul Play. Anyways, Celesteela comes in. I just go for the Foul Play, as it actually doesn't 2-hit KO, and he goes for the Autotomize, but I actually end up outspeeding even though he's at +2, so that's pretty nice. And I do live any hit bar like Z Grass, which doesn't make sense versus my team, especially with Metal Sound. But anyways, I take the Supersonic Sky Strike and knock him out with the Foul Play. It wasn't possible for that to be a speed tie because my Scarf Crocodile hits a odd speed number, so if he outsped, he would have outsped the previous turn with his even speed number because ×2 is always even. But anyways, I go into my Toxapex here on the Tangrowth because it's literally free, and I'm able to recover up. He's forced out, he goes into his Nidoking, and look at this, 40%. So Toxapex is in fact the best water type in Draft League format, and it just forced out a Nidoqueen. How about that? Anyways, Toxapex just... Tangrowth can't do much to me, but I can't do too much to it. So I just go into my Latios here on the predicted Giga Drain, basically conditioning him to not click knockoff there. And now he's in range of Draco Meteor, so I can just kind of drop it. Empoleon is getting whittled, and I always have Toxapex on the Empoleon. He does Scald. Here he gets the burn as I knock off his Assault Vest, and now he goes into his Tangrowth. I just go for a Scald, and now I go into my Latios once again. And here I go for the Roost because I know that he's going to sack his Empoleon, and I want to keep my Latios healthy. Even if he stayed in, it wasn't a big deal since I am Seed Move. Knockoff's not going to do that much, and he is burned. So yeah. Now Draco Meteor, he is going to die to the burn. Yeah, knockoff does 20. And now I'm going to go for the Z-Drake versus the Nidoqueen and live the Poison Jab. He actually ruins my Latios' differential point, that doesn't matter, with the Sucker Punch, and now I'm just going to go on Electric and finish it off with the Hidden Power Ground. But anyways, that's going to be the top 16. Now let's move on to the top 8, which is versus Moxie and Fernie, an NPL Majors coach. Yeah, so let's bring up his team real quick. And so he has Mega Kangaskhan, Mew, Clefable, Keldeo, Muck, Alolan, Fortress, which is a bad mon by the way, Manectric, and Gligar. Now, a good thing for his team, when you're playing his team actually, is that he doesn't have a Steel type. You may say, oh, he has a Fortress right there, but Fortress is not a Steel type. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, this Latios, first thing on my team, is designed to lure a Assault Vest Muck, because Assault Vest Muck is fantastic versus my team. It can Pursuit Trap the Latios, it can switch on Manectric, it can switch in on Clefable, it can just do all sorts of things. Even like a Spadef Curse variant can potentially do this, do a lot of work versus my team. And yeah, Muck, I definitely needed to lure somehow with either my Latios or my Toxapex. Well, not really lure with Toxapex, but yeah, I needed ways to deal with Muck. So this is a pretty cool thing. Even with zero attack investment, a Draco Meteor into Earthquake kills even a Spadef AV Muck. Well, not max Spadef AV, but a decent amount of Spadef AV Muck. Earthquake is doing 70% minimum if he is max HP with some defense. So yeah, that's pretty nice lure, and yeah, this is one of the bigger threats versus his team. Next up is my Mega Manectric. This thing is a pretty nice threat versus him as well. His best switch-in is like an Assault Vest Manectric of his own, and even then, I'm pretty sure I 1v1 that with ease. I guess Spadef Muck, as well as maybe Specially Defensive Clefable or Mew. None of those really like to take Thunderbolts, though. That's the thing. And Gligar can come in, but Gligar HP Ice is an easy 2-hit KO. If he's physically defensive, it's an OHKO after rocks most of the time, but I think he will be specially defensive if he brings it, so I'm going to need to either knock off the Eviolite or just predict it on the switch with a Flamethrower or an Ice Beam, or not Ice Beam, In-Bar Ice, but yeah. I'm able to run Modest Manectric, which is nice versus his team. Keldeo is the thing that I'm speed creeping here. Again with Latios, Keldeo is the benchmark I went for. Next is my Clefable. Now Clefable is going to be knock off rocks because, say it with me, Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. Knockoff is there to remove the Eviolite from Gligar, remove the Berry from a Recycle Muck, remove the Specs from Keldeo. For some reason he wants to leave that in. Remove the leftovers from Clefable, remove the item from Mew. It's just really nice in general. Moonblast is nice as well as a stab move. Just kind of hits his team. This is the same spread as earlier, 88 Spadef, because, well, it hits a different benchmark, but it's the same EV spread. This actually allows me to live 2 Specs Scalds from Keldeo, as I felt like he might think that, oh, he could just break Toxpex and then Specs Keldeo goes ham versus me, or bring like Hidden Power Psychic on his Keldeo and potentially to a KO my Pex or something like that. I don't really know, but just in case he was Specs, or if he decided to bring Calm Mind sub Keldeo, which versus a Pex he could decide to bring. So I want to be able to sponge 2 +1 hits, whether that be Specs or from a Calm Mind. Anyways, that's my Clefable set. Next up is my Hariyama. This is probably the most interesting Hariyama spread that I ran in the tournament. 192 defense allows me to take something. That's very specific. I think 192 defense was to take Mega Kangaskhan returns, so that he would have to take 4 rounds of Rocky Helmet rather than 3. 108 speed is for a what's it for? It's for a speed creep on Clefable, since I am running Heavy Slam. 132 attack with an Adamant Nature is basically there to kill a Kangaskhan, to one-hit KO Keldeo if he gets the Scald Burn on me and I have my Guts activated, as well as it just kind of smacks his team. This coverage is very good versus him. Next up is my Toxapex. Now, let me tell you something. Double Dance Mew is a huge threat to my draft. Rock Polish, Nasty Plot, Mewinium, Z, Psychic, and Aurasphere just kind of smacks me around. So I definitely needed some form of counterplay to that thing. So I decided the first thing I wanted to do is have Pyapa Berry Toxic Toxapex. This would be able to put the Mew on a timer, and I could potentially switch around and let it wear itself down with Toxic Recoil. I could also go for a Haze. I could go for a lot of things. This special defense allows me to take a +2, I think it's a +2 Psychic in terrain. Is that it? No. Maybe. Something like that. I think so. A +2 psychic and terrain, that sounds about right. But yeah, this thing just tanks a lot of hits. It's also a pretty good muck switch in, as I can switch in on pretty much everything that it wants to go for, and Scald Burn it, go for Haze if it wants to curse up, recover off all the damage, etc. Fortress can't do anything to Toxic Pex. His ways of breaking Pex is like Mew and offensive clefable. That's pretty much it. He could also run like a Kangaskhan capable of beating Pex, but that's not one of his main ways of breaking Pex, I don't think. Anyways, next up is my Ferrothorn. This thing is Akaberry Spadef. This is to take any +2 hit from Mew, no matter what, and get off a Toxic or a Gyro Ball, whichever I need more. Gyro Ball is EV'd to 2-hit KO Mew after rocks 100% of the time. That's pretty much it. Spikes are very nice versus his team, as a lot of it is grounded. Leech Seed is nice to keep my Ferrothorn healthy, and Akaberry helps versus a Fire Move Mega Kangaskhan as well as a Flamethrower Clefable, as well as like a Fire Blast Muck if he decides to bring that. And it also gives me the berry for Manectric, so Akaberry is a nice bring in this matchup. It does a lot of things for me. Anyways, that's the team. Let's get right into the game. Here it is. And you can see he didn't bring the Mega Kangaskhan, which is nice. That frees up my Hariyama a lot. And just relieving that pressure on my team is very nice. However, Mew is definitely the biggest threat going into this. Anyways, I lead off with my Mega Manectric, as it's a pretty much free Volt on anything. He goes into his Mew, or he leads with Mew. I go for the Volt Switch, does 28, and that reveals to be a max special defense Mew. At least that's what I thought at this point in the game. We later learned this as Assault Vest Mew, but what I was thinking at the time was max Spadef, or at least very heavily Spadef invested Mew. Here, he goes into his Clefable, gets the crit drop on me as I get up my rocks, because Stealth Rock's Clefable is broken and will always get them up. However, this is Life Orb Clef, and Moonblast is a roll. It's pretty much a 50-50 roll, but I don't want to risk my Clefable. So I'm going to go on my Ferrothorn because I know for a fact he's going for a Moonblast here, and I can get off a huge hit with Gyro Ball, beating up my Akaberry. And I get off a lot of damage on this Clefable, which is super nice because this thing is impossible for my draft to switch into. Bar a Spadef Clef, but if he crits that, then it's not a switch in. But anyways, here I thought about the play for a little bit. I thought about going into my Latios. I thought about going into my Mega Manectric as well. However, I decided that a 30% Ferrothorn is not going to be that useful, and if he goes for the Moonblast versus any of those two mons, or if he goes for the Soft Boiled, it could be really bad for me. So I decided to just sack my Ferrothorn to the Flamethrower here. And now I go into my Manectric and I just go for the Volt Switch, as it would knock out the Clefable, as well as pick up momentum versus anything that isn't Gligar. And if he does go Gligar, I can live any hit into a KO with the Hidden Power Ice. Now, I go on my Toxapex on the Muck, as he reveals some really neat prep, which is going to be Infestation, Knockoff, and you're going to see the next turn he's going to have Taunt, which was great prep on him. It deals with my Toxapex, and now Keldeo is looking like a much bigger threat. But anyways, so I'm just going to go for the Skull, hoping for a burn. I don't get it, of course. But now I go into my Hariyama, and I'm going to go for the Knockoff, because if he stays in, he loses leftovers and he gets put in range of my ZEQ from Latios. So that's pretty nice, as well as anything he wants to switch into doesn't appreciate a Knockoff. So I just went for it, and now I'm going to go for the Ice Punch. As he goes for the U-turn, takes the helmet, which is kind of funny, and go for the Ice Punch on the Keldeo. Now, this thing can't kill me with anything other than a Specs Pump, and Specs Pump with the Trapper Muck does make sense. However, I'm going to go into my Latios, as it's just my safest play, as he goes for the Surf, and with that damage, he reveals to be Scarf. or at least non-boosting, but I think he's Sarf. Right here, I go for the Draco Meteor because it picks one up pretty much, unless he wants to go Fortress, but I could have HP Fire, so I don't think that's really the play for him. But anyways, I do miss my Draco Meteor, which is honestly fine for me, as it means I can go for the Psychic here and not get the drops. Here he goes into his Fortress, and I don't have Hidden Power Fire, and I want to go into my Manectric because, well, if you look at his team, Flamethrower, or not Flamethrower, do I have Overheat or Flamethrower? I don't actually remember. Anyways, the Fire move, it could potentially pick one up or weaken the Muck into range of the Tectonic Rage. And at this point, Latios is getting really close to just winning by itself. The only thing I really have to watch out for is a Spadef Mew, as he can recover up on my Dracos potentially. But I go into my Manectric as he reveals the Explosion. Now, that's pretty wild. And now he brings in his Keldeo. The only reason you do this is if you're Scarf. I'm going to go and sack my clefable. I say sack, but to be honest, I was expecting a Secret Sword here, predicting my Latios, because a Scarf's Secret Sword would do a little bit more to Latios, as well as if you wanted to protect it with Icy Wind, for example, clefable would be able to tank 2 and I'd be able to recover up. But here, I just decided to sack my clefable because if he doubled out into Muck on my Latios, that would have been really bad for me. Anyways, here I'm just going to go for the Recover, as I know he's going to stay in. Actually, no, I go for the Draco. I go for the Recover this turn, because I know he's staying in, he's not going to switch out a Keldeo that dies to rocks, and I'm going to get my Latios to as full as I can, and knock it out with Psychic. And that went a little fast, but Mew comes in, and I can't stay in with my Latios because it's at -2, and I go into my Hariyama as he goes for the Psychic. Now that's going to pick up my Hariyama with the combination of Psychic into Thousand Gleam, and the Psychic damage reveals that he's max special attack, so this is definitely Assault Vest Mew. And here I go into my Manectric because this covers all options. If he stays in, covers all options. But if he stays in on my Volt Switch, I can go to Latios. Even if he predicts me, Latios lives any hit because it's naturally bulky. Dazzling Gleam is like, I think 60 max and about 70. And Volt Switch into Draco Meteor is going to be able to knock out the Mew. And if he switches out into Muck on my Draco Meteor, I Tectonic Rage, and then he takes Rocks again, I can go for another Draco Meteor, and then Thunderbolt cleans from Manectric. And that's if he stays in. If he switches into Muck here, I Volt Switch out into my Latios, go for the Tectonic Rage, and if he switches out, that's kind of unfortunate, but I don't think he would switch out a Muck versus Latios. That's definitely a free knockoff if I've ever seen one. But yeah. He does decide to stay in, and I go into my Latios, and he does go for the Psychic, so I get that play quote-unquote right, and now he goes, sacks off his Mew to the Draco Meteor, and now he's going to die to the Tectonic Rage. So that's going to be the game versus Moxie Infernape, and we move on to the top 8 now. Or was this the top 8? Top 4 now. Yeah. So we're getting up there. So let's go into the top 4 match, and let's pull up the team right here. This is against Ace of Base. He has a very threatened team, again with a Mew. Fortunately, Moxie did not bring Double Dance Mew, so I was thinking maybe Ace wouldn't think to bring Double Dance Mew because it's kind of an out there set, and I felt like if anyone, Moxie would be the one to bring it. So I didn't prep as heavily for a Double Dance Mew in this match. But anyways, this Latios is going to be Psychium because he has a Finny, and I don't want to be Dragonium versus a Finny because that's kind of a waste of a move if the terrain is up. And Psychium kind of hits all the targets anyways. I have Hidden Power Fire for Ferrothorn. And I do have like 96 HP and Roost, so I can deal with the Salazzle pretty well as take on pretty much anything on his team aside from a Scarf Hydreigon. Yeah, so that's pretty good for me. This moveset kind of smacks his team around, and yeah, that's it for the Lottie set. Like, I know this is going to be a short game, honestly, because we have Ferrothorn versus Ferrothorn, and spikes are going up, let me tell you. Spikes are going to be huge this game. But anyways, next up is my Crocodile. I actually took the EV spread that I used versus Mr. Broccoli, and I pretty much applied it to this matchup using the same special defense Assault Vest spread for the Hydreigon. It takes 2 Life Orb Draco Meteors, as well as the same moveset, but I replaced Stone Edge with Pursuit because I don't need Stone Edge in this matchup, and Pursuit is nice for a Mew that wants to switch out. Nothing else really in Crocodile's moveset is really that good in this matchup. Certainly not as good as Pursuit, as I can also Pursuit Salazzle, which is a pretty nice threat versus me, as he can Toxic my Toxapex, which is not great for my Pex. But I do have the prep on my Clefable to deal with that. Speaking of Clefable, let's go. Here we do have the Heal Bell Stealth Rock Clefable. Once again, Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. Moonblast is completely fine here. I don't need Flamethrower because if Ferrothorn comes in, I go into my own Ferrothorn and I get up spikes. And if we go for max hazard game, it will favor me because I have Regenerator Pex plus Latios off the ground plus a Magic Guard Clefable. So if he wants to trade spikes with me, I am perfectly fine with that, as I know it'll favor me in the end. But yeah, Clefable is there, just does stuff. Pex is here, max special defense with Toxic. This is basically so I can Toxic the Mew, because if he's not set up, the only thing that knocks me out is a Genesis Supernova, and if he uses that, well, I don't know if he would versus a Crocodile. He could just predict the switch. But anyways, Hydreigon is completely walled by this. Mega Kangaskhan is dealt with by Clefable and Ferrothorn, as well as my double Intimidate, so I'm not too scared of Mega Kang at this point. But anyways, max special defense is nice. I can take Salazzle hits. Even if I get Toxic, I do have Heal Bell in the back. Haze is nice to deal with any setup that he wants to go for. I thought about bringing like Gunk Shot for the Tapu Fini, as well as not allowing Hydreigon to sub up on me if he decided to bring that set. Although I think Hydreigon has like 4 Moonshot Syndrome versus me, because it wants Flamethrower, it wants Earth Power, it wants Fire Blast, it wants Dual Stab, it wants Roost, it wants everything, and it can't have it. So I didn't feel like Hydreigon was a big threat, even if he did have sub, as I always would have a way of dealing with it. Anyways, that's just a Pex. I went max special defense also in part because he could bring a Tapu Fini designed to deal with Pex, and max special defense deals with that a little bit better than physical defense would. Anyways, next up is my Ferrothorn, also max def, because again, physical threats are checked pretty nicely by Clefable plus double Intimidate. So, Spit up Ferrothorn. This also eats any hit from a Mew. Even if he Flamethrowers, I would be able to live that at neutral. Spikes, Knockoff, Power Whip, and Leech Seed. I have Knockoff to deal with his own Ferrothorn. Spikes are self-explanatory in this matchup. Power Whip is the stab of choice because, again, Hydreigon is not a big threat to me. I have the Clefable, I have the Assault Vest Crocodile, I have the Toxapex. It's not going to do a thing. And I have Leech Seed just for some recovery because, well, his only stop to Leech Seed is his own Ferrothorn, which gives me spikes, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And last but not least is my Mega Manectric. This thing, I have Toxic because it catches his 2 switch-ins to my Manectric, which is a bulky Hydreigon and Piloswine. That's pretty nice. I have enough HP for something. I think it's what's it for? It's for Scarf Hydreigon's Draco Meteor. So I can live that. As well as I can also go Modest and hit harder than if I were Timid. So that's pretty cool. Pretty self-explanatory set. And let's get into the game. And here, you can see he didn't bring the Salazzle, so I kind of wish I had Flamethrower on Clef now, but I have Stealth Rocks on Clef, and that's the more important thing. Anyways, I'm going to lead off with my Clefable because Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. Now he goes into his Ferrothorn, and we're just going to trade some hazards here. So a Spike for a Spike, this favors me in the long run, so I'm perfectly fine with that. He goes for the Calm Mind with his Mew, as I go for the Leech Seed. And getting a Leech Seed off on this means that I can go into my Crocodile here, and no matter what he goes for, I'm able to tank the hit, unless it's like a Z Focus Blast or something like that, which doesn't make sense versus my team. But anyways, I go for the knockoff here, and here I had a few plays. I could sack my Crocodile to more safely revenge with my Mega Electric, also preventing a Roost, or I could switch out into my Pex because no one clicks Psychic here, and if he goes for the Ice Beam, he dies to the Leech Seed. But I decided that sacking my Crocodile is probably the play that will have the least amount of consequences. Worst case scenario, Mew's dead to hazards if he switches out. So I'm actually just going to sack my Crocodile as he reveals the Sub-Zero Slammer. I didn't expect that at all, to be honest. And Ice Beam was a roll, so it makes sense that he dropped the Z there. But I thought he would be Psychium, or not Psychium, but Mewinium. But anyways, here he goes Piloswine. This is the most obvious rocks I've ever seen in my entire life, so I just bought that thing with a Toxic. And now I can go into my Clefable to wall this thing. However, I do need to make sure that I keep my Clefable at full, because otherwise I can't switch in to the Mega Kangaskhan. But anyways, my Clefable is at full now, and he goes into Ferrothorn, which gives me another Spike. However, I go for the knockoff, because 2 spikes versus 1 spike is not a huge difference, and I wanted to get the knockoff on whatever he went into. It turned out to be the Hydreigon. I go into my Toxapex because Flash Cannon could potentially snipe my Clefable, since I'm not running any special defense on it, and Toxapex is easily the safest play. Now he goes into his Finny. Here, what did he go for? He goes for a Nature's Madness and misses. I mean, I'll take it. And here he goes for the Taunt on my Ferrothorn. And people do this way too often, honestly. And you're going to see why you shouldn't really taunt Ferrothorn with your Finny. This is what happens. Watch. Yeah, don't taunt Ferrothorn with Finny. You don't wall Ferrothorn. Like, stop it. Anyways, mini rant over. Hydreigon back in. Pex back in. Top 1 water, by the way. And now I can just go for the recover, as he's getting worn down my hazards, and with Toxapex and Clefable both having pseudo immunities to hazards, Toxapex via Regenerator, but Clefable's in, and here I could have soft-boiled here, and I probably should have, to be honest, but he got me with a play and went for the Ice Shard. So now my Clefable is a little bit less healthy, and Kangaskhan comes in. Now here, like, I can just sack my Ferrothorn to the return, get off some Iron Barbs damage, but he actually goes for the Power Punch on my Clefable, which I don't know if I agree with that. I guess it was a good play in the sense that he could get the +2, live the Moonblast, and then knock me out with the return next turn. Actually, it does kind of make sense, but Manectric comes in here. I can go for the Thunderbolts, and unfortunately for me, I get a paralysis, and this kind of sucks a lot, because you're going to see here, he goes for the Power Punch, and now everything on my team dies to either Sucker Punch or Return. Now that's not good, especially because he already revealed that he has, what did he reveal that he has Sucker Punch? Well, he does have Sucker Punch, because why would you go for Power Punch without Sucker Punch? I knew for a fact he would have Sucker Punch. However, if I didn't get the paralysis, I could just click Toxic here, and he's dead in 2 turns. At most, he's getting 2 kills. I mean, it's just a winning endgame for me. However, unfortunately, that's no longer an option. Here, he goes for a Sucker Punch, I go for the Toxic anyways, and now, I had to do it to him. Bop. Just casually outplay the Sucker Punch. Now, I didn't just lose if I got that turn wrong because of the yellow magic. Chances are, versus one of my Pokemon, he was going to get fully paralyzed, and I only needed basically just Toxapex to win this game. I guess Toxapex plus 1 Pokemon so that I could reset the Leech Seed versus Ferrothorn, but also Clefable just on its own won this game because I am lowered Speed IV so that Gyro Ball does not 2-hit KO my Clefable ever. But anyways, I just eliminate all that by Thunderbolting on the non-Sucker Punch, overheat the Ferrothorn. Hydreigon comes in, I just go for the Toxic because if he was like Substitute, he could potentially like flinch down my Clefable, however unlikely, dodge Draco Meteors and all that. And now Toxapex comes in and I recover any forfeits. So that's my top 4 match, and now we're in the finals versus II. And let's look at the team I decided to bring. This is the last matchup, obviously, since it is finals versus II. And I actually prepped pretty hard on this one since it is finals. And the 3rd place match had to go before the finals. So I had plenty of time to prep in this game versus the other rounds where I maybe only had 20 minutes. But yeah, so this is the team that I came up with. This matchup, by the way, it's okay. It's not fantastic for me, but it's not that bad. However, I am going to need to get some plays right. So this team, starting off with the Scarf Trick Latios. Now originally this was going to be Trick Shadow Ball for the Doublade, however Trick Defog seemed like definitely the play because if he managed to get up a lot of spikes with his Roserade, I wouldn't be able to deal with rocks plus spikes on my side of the field because, well, look at my team. Does not appreciate spikes at all. 4 Pokemon are hit by spikes, and that's just not good for me, especially if there's rocks up as well, taking at least 25% every turn with 4 of my Pokemon. Well, I guess Ferrothorn and Crocodile resist rocks, but anyways, taking damage like that is not something that I want to allow happen, so I felt like Defog was a little bit more valuable than the Shadow Ball. Next up is my Toxapex, which is going to be special defensive with Magic Coat. This prevents Tornadoes from taunting me. It prevents Roserade from getting up spikes versus me. And that's the general game plan with Toxapex, because I know that Roserade is going to click spikes versus Toxapex for a fact. I know that he's going to have spikes. I know he's going to click it versus Toxapex. That's 100% in my mind. So getting a Magic Coat on the spikes, reflecting them back on his side, is super nice for me. Now, one thing that I did notice about this matchup is that getting rocks up is very important versus his team. If rocks are up on my side and rocks are up on his side, that favors me very heavily. However, if spikes are on my side and I don't have rocks on his side, I'm going to lose, basically. Unless I get the defog off. So I wanted to be able to push those spikes back onto his side, as well as get up rocks with Clefable, which, by the way, Stealth Rock Clefable is broken and will always get them up. This is going to be a Stealth Rock Flame Clef. This is so that I can hit the Roserade upon switch in, as well as the Doublade, and just pressure those things nicely. Max defense so that I can take Mega Glade hits as best as possible. that's pretty much it for the clefable set. Pretty self-explanatory. Magic Guard because I don't need Unaware, and Magic Guard is just better. Crocodile is going to be Scarf, Intimidate with Foul Play, Knockoff, Earthquake, and Superpower. Again, Scarf Foul Play is the easiest way to revenge Mega Gallade. Foul Play also can, well, it's literally just for Gallade, what am I talking about? I mean, I guess if he gets a Swords Dance with Doublade, Foul Play can come in handy. But Knockoffs, Earthquake, Superpower, those are going to be the main moves that I'm hitting outside of Mega Gallade. A Knockoff snipes his only ground resists, being Torrentee and Rotom Heat. None of them appreciate a Knockoff, especially with Rock Step. I believe it's a 2-hit KO on both of them with Rocks, so that's pretty nice. And then I can spam Earthquake, pretty much pick one up every time. Next up is my Manectric, which is going to be Hidden Power Water because it covers both the Mamoswine and the Rotom Heat in one move slot. Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, and Overheat. Overheat is stronger than Flamethrower, which is nice versus Roserade and Doublade. I think especially defensive Doublade can take a Flamethrower, but not an Overheat. I might be able to take an Overheat, but yeah, Overheat's a little stronger. And then last but not least is my Ferrothorn. This is pretty much my go-to set versus Mega Gallade if I want to have one extra layer of protection versus it. And it just so happens to also help versus a Superpower Mamoswine. So I decided that Chople Ferrothorn was definitely the way to go, especially with spikes. Getting double hazards up on his team is super nice, as a lot of his team is grounded, and the stuff that isn't grounded takes super effective damage from Stealth Rocks, so if I can get Stealth Rock and a layer of spikes up, that's going to be very nice for me, as well as Leech Seed. The only thing that really doesn't get Leech Seeded is the Roserade, which I have Gyro Ball to smack pretty hard. Anyways, that's going to be the team. I also have Toxic, by the way, to catch the Rotom Heat upon switch-in, as well as deal with a Recycle Snorlax a little bit easier. But anyways, that's going to be the team. Let's get right into the finals game. And here we are. And look at it, the matchup. He didn't bring the Rotom Heat or the Primarina, which means that Toxapex is the only water type to make finals. So this just proves that it's top 1 water, and here I'm going to prove once more that it is top 1 water by sacking it turn 1. Watch this. I go for Magikarp predicting rocks. Bob. Oh, that was funny. But flex over pecs. So, I mean, flexing is obviously more important than my pecs, and hazards are everything in this match, I think. So if I could get up rocks for free, that would have been lit, and I really wanted to stunt, so I tried it, and I got, well, you know when they say stunt or die? I died. But anyways, here, I'm going to go on my Ferrothorn, and I'm going to get up a Spike, because I really need to play offensively this match, because I'm already down 6-5 turn 1. Anyways, I go into my Manectric here on the Heat Wave, because I'm a bulkier Manectric that doesn't do too much, and here I go for, I believe, the Hidden Power Water, predicting the Mamoswine, because I can't let this guy get up rocks, basically at all. And from that damage, he's either specially defensive or Assault Vest. And we're going to see from this damage, that's max attack, believe it or not. -1 Fire Punch to Clefable. If it's offensive, does like 11 to 12, whereas if he were just specially defensive, would do 9 to 10. So I know this thing is Assault Vest, which is nice. Nice knowledge. And now, you already know what I'm going to say. Stealth Rock Clefable is broken, and will always get them up, and this game is no different. So we get up the rocks here, and he brings in his Roserade. I'm like, okay, a Spike is going up. That's not the end of the world. However, he goes for the Toxic, and that's fantastic for me. I don't mind Latios getting Toxic at all. I'm going to make the double here into my Crocodile, predicting the Doublade, as that works out perfectly for me. And now I'm going to go for the knockoff, as if I go for Earthquake, he loses a mon unless he goes into Tornadus. And since I revealed the Intimidate, he's not going to be thinking of the Scarf Crocodile as much as if I were Moxie. Moxie is like a dead giveaway that you're Scarf Crook, whereas Intimidate, you can bluff it. And in this case, he definitely fell for the bluff. I don't know if he was thinking of Scarf or maybe Utility Crocodile, maybe even a Leftovers Crocodile, Leftovers Offensive. Potentially could have been his thought process, but Torn is going to go down to the second knockoff, and now he has no ground resist versus a Scarf Crocodile, so that's really nice. Here, I heavily considered going for a knockoff again, because I felt like his play was either to predict the clefable or double. Because, well, I don't think he should double. I think he should always predict clefable there. So I was thinking he's either going to go for the Poison Jab, Zen, or he's going to go for a setup move, probably Swords Dance, is what I was thinking at this moment. So I was like, I could knock again, and knockoff is a 2-hit KO on Mega Gallade, so I considered it. However, Crocodile is just too nice to risk, so I decided to go into my Clefable, as he actually goes for the bulk up. So even if I stayed in there predicting the setup, it wouldn't have 2-hit KO'd thanks to the defense boost. And now he actually misses the Zen Headbutt, which is really nice for me, as now he's put in a position where he's forced to predict me. I could easily go into my Crocodile on this Gallade, which means that he's going to want to click the fighting move here. And I've already shown that I'm willing to go Crocodile on Mega Gallades in my round, or in my pools round. So he knows that I could make that play, and that since I sacked my Pex turn 1, I am kind of in the back, so I have to make plays. So I'm going to make the play of flexing on his flex and staying in. And even if he did go for the Zen here, I lived it, and it would just mean that my Clefable is a little bit weaker. So staying in was definitely the play, I think. And now he's going to go into his Mamoswine. I am out of range of an Earthquake, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go for the Moonblast, and he's actually going to go for the Icicle Crash, fishing for a flinch, and of course he's going to get it, and that's completely fine, justice for missing the Zen Headbutt and all. Now my Clefable is going to go down, but I got up rocks, and Clefable is going to continue to do some work here, even while dead, thanks to those Stealth Rocks. Manectric comes in. I'm just going to go for the Hidden Power Water, because I definitely want this Mamoswine dead. I considered Volting on the predicted switch out there, but there was literally no need to do that, as even if he switched out, I could just Volt the next turn. I could figure out if Roserade is Scarf based on the damage when it comes. Actually, no, I think it already revealed the Black Sludge and Toxics. Yeah, it did. So I didn't even need to fear Scarf Roserade. I can just click the HP Water for free. And now he goes into this. This is going to be Assault Vest, and I know that the only reason you bring Assault Vest Snorlax versus me is for Latios, which means you're going to have Pursuit, and Pursuit knocks out Manectric if I switch out with a Volt Switch, and he knows that he can live any hit. He knows that I know he can live any hit, so I know he's going to go for the Pursuit here, which is why I'm going to stay in and go for the Thunderbolt. I get a Para again, third time. And he does go for the Pursuit, and I'm able to stunt on that a little bit. Go for the Volt Switch here because I don't want my Manectric to be in versus the Doublade, because then he can just go for the Shadow Sneak. I go into my Crocodile because it forces in the Roserade rather than the Crocodile, or rather than the Doublade, and I have my Latios to switch in to this Roserade. And now I know that if he stays on the Psyshock, he straight up loses immediately, so I'm going to go for the Trick on the Doublade because going Doublade is his only shot at winning this game. And so I get that play right, and now I'm going to switch out into my Ferrothorn, predicting the Shadow Sneak, and now I'm going to lay up some more hazards and go for Gyro Balls here because I want to weaken this Roserade, put it in range of my Crocodile's Earthquake, and then that would do the trick. However, I'm going to speed this process up because I know he's going to click Synthesis there. Go to my Latios, I go for Psyshock. Now that is a 2-hit KO, however, I don't want to take a Shadow Sneak because Latios is my most immediate way of killing the Roserade. If he does manage to get up to full HP, he could potentially live a hit from my Crocodile as well as dodge a overheat from my Manectric. So I wanted to make sure that I had Latios in the back to side shock that thing 100% of the time. And here I get up third Spike because I know he's just going to sneak, and that gets off a little bit more chip on the Roserade, and now he's going to go for the Hidden Power Fire, and I'm going to finish this game with the Latios Side Shock, and that is the entire tournament. So we managed to win the whole thing with an overall record, I think, 8-1, the one loss in pools, and yeah, so that's going to be the whole March Madness tournament. Thanks for watching. Shout out to Jade if you managed to make it this far in the video. Yeah, not much else to say. I really like this draft. I do like the fatter drafts with a really nice defensive backbone that you can rely on, as well as some nice offense. And I think this team really, it's exactly what I like to use, aside from there's no Volcarona on there. If I could fit Volk on here, this would be an even better team. However, only 8 Mons, and I think I couldn't have drafted much better than I did for the team style that I really like to use. So this was just a perfect fit. For example, I had the 3rd overall pick, and Lando T was available, but I knew that Latios just fit this team so much better, and I really wanted to try Crocodile, so I just picked up Latios round 1, and I do not regret it. I've used Lando T a lot, and I really wanted to try Crocodile, and I love Crocodile after this. It's so good. I think it only didn't come to 1 match, and yeah, I've brought all sorts of things: AV, Scarf, Banded, Leftovers, Taunt, Aerial Ace. Very nice mod. And Double Intimidate is very nice. I'm actually surprised no one brought any adrenaline orbs versus me versus Double Intimidate. That would have been really cool. But yeah, I guess you can't really think of everything with 20-minute prep. Anyways, that's going to be all for the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.